All right, what is up? We are live. We are live. We are back. NFL Week 14, jumping right in. I guess before we jump right in, we've got to shout out the Toronto Raptors. Hey, they are down by 20 right now to the Celtics. Hey, yo, it is what it is. But the throwback jerseys are, Chef's Kiss perfect. Chef's Kiss perfect. Hey, they're so beautiful, Chet. They got us stumbling over our words. Hey, yo, it is what it is. We saw this clip we saw this clip scrolling through of Tyson talking about a time he met Michael Jackson, and apparently when he approached him, the first thing MJ said to him was, "Where have I seen you before?" Which immediately humbled Tyson, and Tyson was like, "Oh, you're so beautiful. I just wanted to shake your hand," which is like, Tyson, of course, in a midst of personality traits. Hey, yo, shout out, a very funny guy. But so I'm sure part of the the Tyson comedic timing in the moment in a way, but also just hey yo, Tyson just under the charm of MJ just like everybody else. So I don't know, are we under the charm of these Raptors jerseys like everybody else is? Is that why Glorilla's been hanging around the team, chat? I don't know, but hey yo, speaking of, it's 22. Okay, time to focus on the NFL. We've got Bears Packers in the prime time spot. We've got the Rams I guess we'll see what happens, of course. I guess once they get the ball. Hey, yo, the Cardinals did score early in that game, so it is 7-0 to start. Could be interesting. We've already seen some kind of upset type stuff. I mean, we had, of course, a high level game, a game of the year contender. I guess because the Bengals, I guess they still would have been 5-8. I don't know. They're not gonna make the play. They have 8 losses, so they're not gonna make the playoffs even if they win out probably. But I guess could they win the division with 8 losses? We'd have to see. I guess if the Ravens and the Steelers had ended up tying today, they both would have been 6-6-1. So I don't know if how that would have. I guess that still is better than 5-8, but. If they go to 6-7, 6-6-1 is still probably better than or 6-7-8. So, I don't know if you're a little bit closer to that, but either way, there's still a long shot from the playoffs. But it was an entertaining game. The Bills, of course, as a dramatic team this year, were able to make the comeback victory pause. But maybe we start with a little college football as well, too, because the college football playoff ranking has been revealed. I got a little confused, I guess, just me personally, looking at some of the headline stuff with the schedule reveal ranking stuff, because, they always, throughout the course of the season, release the fake college football playoff rankings on Tuesday, but the AP still releases, of course, on pause. They still have the poll that pause again. They still have the rankings that gets dropped on Sunday. So when I saw that there was a playoff ranking that was out there, I didn't know if it was just the AP with their initial what could this look like, and then we're going to get the college football playoff dramatic reveal on Tuesday, which would still make a little bit of sense because, it is a ways away from playing the bowl game. It's not like we're just going right into the next week or I guess maybe we have to check the schedule now as well too. We have to remember, I guess, because of the fact that they do have a couple more playoff games in there, it is a little bit different. But I don't think they're starting up this next week. We should probably check check the games and see exactly where they start. But either way, could you do a whole kind of show sort of ordeal on a Tuesday? I don't know what else ESPN's got going on, but regardless, we know who's going to be in the field for the 12 teams. Ohio State, they are still the betting favorites, so it is what it is. I mean, shout out, of course, the Buckeye or the Hoosiers for IT, cut that out, for winning the Big Ten title. We got distracted because the Bears, did they just pick off Love? I didn't know if that was a punt return or not. We looked over and saw the defender just run down the sideline. But yeah, shout out. They were able to get to Jordan Love. Hey, yo, get the ad out of here. Hey, yo, what is going on? ESPN, that's crazy. But is that Gardner Johnson? Oh, chat. The Bears have Gardner Johnson too? I guess I didn't even realize that. I mean, you can check the tapes. We've been about as pro bring that guy into your team as possible. I know that, we're not necessarily a film guy that can break down every play and know, okay, is there going to be, if he's playing 45 to 65 defensive snaps a game, I don't even know how many snaps you play as a defensive back, but if he's playing 18 interceptions most of the season for the Bears team in general, but yeah, if he is playing, 45 to whatever snaps a game, is there going to be 30 of them where maybe he's making not necessarily the right play, but then 2 to 3 of them where he makes a game-changing play. But, just for eye test sitting on the couch type stuff, he's always a guy that is making impact plays. It seems like the defenses he's on has always been, I mean, they have been good defenses, so he's definitely benefited from that. Oh, Bears fumble? Or was there a tackle? They might be calling that a tackle. It is what it is. And we should shout out the Lambeau Field as well too. Hey, the crowd is live today. I don't know, shout out. It's of course one of the legendary legacy top crowds in the league. But I don't know, they just seem a little bit extra. And maybe I was some of the crowds earlier a little. Maybe we're just tuned into this game. I don't know. Watching the red zone earlier, I don't know if you can necessarily, pause, soak up an environment the same type of way, cutting from the play to play. But yeah, they are locked in for, and this is for a battle, of course, for first place in the division. So it is, high level intensity stuff as we get to, as we get to the end of the season here. But yeah, he's a guy that, again, just, I mean, is he, sometimes is it causation, correlation? I don't even know. Scientists, what's the right terms here? But has he just been on good defenses? Or has he been a reason that the defenses have been good? Maybe it is for our guy Gardner Johnson. Maybe it is a little bit of both. But they do also have this same, and here, I guess we can go back and kind of look up what, remember exactly year to year the teams he's been on. I know Philly, it's easy just to remember him being on those teams. And of course, Philly, they've been pretty good teams over the last couple of years. It is what it is. But they also, on their offensive line, and I guess we'll start here. I wish here, let me look it up because we got to give credit where credit is due. But there was a post that I saw. I think I sent it to Sam because, Tooney did have a Chiefs run in there. So, it did involve making fun of the Chiefs. It is what it is. Talk Ball Daily, shout out on IG. So they had this post theory about Joe Tooney is like the secret MVP of the league. And if you look at the teams that he's been on, I mean, again, do you say that Joe Tooney has made the team, or do you see that the teams have made Joe Tooney? But he's also been, 2-time All-Pro, 4-time Super Bowl champion at this point. So was able to collect 2 rings in New England in 16 and 18, and then moved to Kansas City, with the Mahomes era, and won 2 rings in Kansas City as well too. And this is his first season in Chicago. And what do you know? Chicago is now all of a sudden, as of this week, going into this game, they're the 1 seed in the NFC. So is Joe Tooney actually the MVP of the league? With the way, I guess, can we get like a record here for the teams that he's been on? Because I bet his regulars, is he like Kawhi Leonard with the regular season wins at this point, where he's won like 75-80% of his regular season games? I wouldn't be shocked to get it. You look at these teams, but he's also played with Brady. He's played with Mahomes at the peak of his powers. He's played with Belichick when he was coaching well. He's played with Andy Reid when he was throwing heat back in the day. So, obviously Andy Reid, shout out. But again, you gotta give credit to the guys that impact winning teams, and Tooney is one of those guys. Like maybe we already said his name, but of course Robert Horry in the NBA, for the way he was able to win titles as a quote unquote role player on multiple teams. Danny Green won titles in San Antonio, helped Toronto win the title when he was in the Kawhi trade. Was he also on that Lakers team that won the title? He might have been. I feel like he got a 3rd championship. He played with Cleveland for a second. I think he played with Cleveland before he was with San Antonio. He might have went back at some point, but I don't remember if he had a Lakers run in there. But speaking of the Lakers, I'm also thinking of KCP as kind of a, speaking of super underrated, championship level impactful guys. He, of course, and maybe a couple years ago now at this point, with the way he impacted that Lakers team, and then of course the Denver team, they won their title when he was on the roster. And of course, he's playing with Jokic, he's playing with LeBron. It is what it is. But also, Caruso is maybe another guy as well too. Caruso was an important wing defender, 3-point perimeter guy for that Lakers team, and then of course now on this Thunder's team has become an impact playoff guy. I mean, was really one of the important reasons why, of course, they won the title last year. I mean, Shea, of course, was awesome. Jalen Williams was awesome in the playoffs. But Caruso, in that, it was that Denver series where it did feel like for a second there, and I don't remember, was Jalen Williams healthy for a majority of that series? It felt like for a second maybe Caruso was even the second most important guy on the court for a second, next to Shea for OKC. So, he Might not necessarily be a guy that's making all-star teams every year, whatever. But of course, you bring him in, you expect him to, be impacting the lineup in the most positive way that a role player can. But Danny Green, Philly. Okay, he did have a Lakers run. So yeah, 1920. That was the title year, right? It wasn't 1819. Of course, the calendar of that year gets a little bit screwed up because of the way the schedule got messed up. But I think that was, I guess we could have just looked up here as well too, where it said 3-time NBA champion. But yeah, one in San Antonio, one in Toronto, and then was able to win in LA as well too. So yeah, he was on the Spurs, of course, there toward the end of the run, and was still able to really impact them in the Kawhi Leonard years. That team, pound for pound for the roster. Again, you look back and go, you go look at the lineup that we were throwing out there against that Warriors team in 17-18, and I guess, or was it would have been 17-18, and I guess he only played 5 games that year. Was he? Oh, that was in the playoffs. Yeah, okay, we got the playoffs tab. I was like, is that right? Yeah, so he was. Shorter playoff run. But, if you was like Jonathan Simmons, Danny Green, Kawhi, LaMarcus Aldridge versus the Warriors, you wouldn't have necessarily, of course, thought that team was going to compete. But, the defensive versatility of that lineup, and then they had the perimeter scoring, and there was pauses, size as well, too, that they were able to compete with. So, because that's a decent physical backcourt there defensively between Danny Green and Jonathan Simmons. So, I think Curry was still able to get his numbers pretty good, but, in theory, you're like, oh, okay, it's probably not going to shut him down. It is what it is. You really start talking yourselves into it if you're a Spurs fan. You got to, when that's the roster you have. But, regardless, those are the guys that maybe like a Joe Tooney, chat, can just be on these teams that are constantly in the mix. And Tooney, again, with the Bears this year, now all of a sudden they've risen to the number 1 seed. And Garner Johnson as well, too, defensively, if we look up his career here as well, too. He hasn't had the All-Pros. Yeah, and I guess only, the 1 Super Bowl champ for him. But, yeah, he was, and I guess only, are we giving him credit for playing 3 games in Detroit? I think we are, Chad. He was in the Detroit uniform, but okay, so yeah, it was at the end of the season, and then was playing for them in the playoffs. So shout out, when they were at least making the run, making their most important games of the season. So New Orleans played for them when their defense was kind of carrying that team a little bit there near the end of the Breeze run, and I guess 1920 was Breeze even their quarterback. At that point, we'd have to go back and double check those years. And then Philly kind of had the Grover Cleveland tenure in Philly. Hey, yo, shout out the reference there. But, 22 and then 24 separate playoff runs, but was able to win the Super Bowl with them in 24. So, again, not surprised to see him being part of another impactful team. I don't even know how many games he's played on the Bears at this point. Okay, he was on Houston to start the year. So, yeah, he was picked up by the Bears to start at the start of November. Shout out. So the minute they've started this winning streak, look at that. They brought in Gardner Johnson. The losing streak for him again was at Houston. It is what it is. But yeah, the 5 games, 4 starts, and they have been able to win all the games. So he's got another one where his win percentage is probably pretty decent for the amount of games he's been able to play. But here, should we look at the college football playoffs real quick? Oh, Brissett just getting drilled by, is that Byron Young? Getting in there, pause, 4th and 12 for the Cardinals, putting it away. But they did hold the Rams to a field goal the last time down the field. So 3-7, we'll see, they can do the same. They get a stop. Brissett has been able to be competitive in these games. We've seen the divisional games be weird, be close today, so would we be shocked, of course, if there was chaos? I mean, it's the NFL. It is what it is. But, it maybe is the week for that a little bit if they are going to just, drop one randomly here. But is Tulane in the playoffs? Is James Madison in the playoffs? What happened here? Okay, we have to take a look. I guess Michigan didn't make it. Hey, yo, it is what it is. Okay, yeah, we're seeing a lot of Tulane odds. So wait, is that just how they have the rankings displayed now? Is that how they do it these days, chat? Betting odds? I mean, is there another way to to look at it. Oh yeah, James Madison is 12th. So are we gonna get like a Cignetti revenge game potentially? I remember that correctly. James Madison, the run. I mean, we could probably sit here and of course praise the coaching job that he's done this year as well too. I think we've already have talking about the state of where the legacy of some of these college head coaches in, but you see constantly online the comparisons of just the overused word, but the aura that he has compared to Saban, and it does seem like there is some crossover there as well too. And we've mentioned before the fact that there is a lot of younger guys that are starting to build the legacies up as the college head coaches. So Cignetti has a little bit, and can we say this respectfully? Maybe being a little bit older does help him carry again. Maybe there is a little bit more of a respect factor there that he does carry. But, regardless, it is what it is. He does, there is, that extra wisdom time that's just going to happen with that. So, he's definitely capitalizing on it at this point as well. And I guess if they have a potential to play Alabama, that would be an interesting game. Of course, Oklahoma has been a feisty team this year. Have they been in sort of the national eye? Have they been the same level of competitive team that they were earlier in the year? I don't think so, but that is still, kind of a winnable matchup. I mean, Alabama definitely looked a little bit more susceptible this week. DeBoer hasn't necessarily had the same, 100% game-to-game thing the way that, of course, Saban would. I mean, Saban versus Cignetti, of course, would be and again, would you call it a changing of the guard? But that would be the ultimate kind of coaching matchup there. And who knows, we've talked about, and they did just sign him to the extension. You don't want to put necessarily, I guess you got to honor the commitment, like we said before, that he has made to Indiana. But Alabama might be the job. And I guess with DeBoer making the playoffs this year, they were in the SEC title game. And again, at the end of the day, you're not necessarily saying, oh, we lose to Kirby Smart. Is that good enough? Alabama, not saying they have that irrational confidence that they should just, win a game against anybody, but that is the level that they're at. You got to be able to win a game against anybody. So DeBoer, they won the SEC last year. Did they win the SEC title game last year? Did they win the SEC? Well, I guess if you win the regular season, it's not college basketball. You don't have necessarily a regular season title and then a playoff title. And I guess that would go to the Kirby Smart Alabama sort of dynamic as well too, that was starting to get into play. Oh, hey, maybe IT cut that out. Did they not win the SEC last year? 9-4, not looking like it. Oh yeah, so Georgia won the SEC. Shout out. Who did they play? Texas. What happened in the SEC championship game? I guess Michigan, were we just telling ourselves they got the win over the SEC champion? That would have been nice. I guess why would you be playing the SEC champion in the real Quest Bowl? Probably not is what would have happened there. But so yeah, I guess 2 years of not winning the SEC, is that enough for DeBoer? So I don't know if Cignetti would leave for basically any job. Not to say that Indiana. Not to disrespect Indiana, it just seems to be a good setup. He seems to be a loyal kind of, or not, it just seems like if he's signing the extension, he's fairly committed to the team. But would Alabama approach him? Would Alabama approach Cignetti and be like, hey, could you, obviously step in and be the next Saban and take over? And again, maybe him being a little bit more, a little bit of an older coach. Maybe that is something that Alabama. Maybe that just fits the vibes a little bit better. Saban was there for a while, so we'd have to go back and what was the gray hair count on Saban when he got hired? Hey, Cignetti's obviously still looking pretty good. We're not saying anything about that, but I'm just saying that maybe there is just a way that he carries himself in a vibe that he has that would make more sense as the Alabama head coach. I think DeBoer definitely has, a great level of swagger, I guess, as a head coach, if you want to put it that way. But yeah, I think if Cignetti was coaching that team, that would feel like kind of, and especially depending on what happens this year, as well too in the playoffs. Not to say if they win the national title, then then really who knows what's possible at that point for him. Does he get an NFL job? I'm sure he would get the calls at that point. Is there an NFL job that would be more tempting than Alabama? Is Alabama I guess you can't say it's the best job in football because, would McVay leave the Rams to go coach Alabama? That would be an interesting question. The Rams also seem like, and, in a little bit of an NIL way as well, too. They do seem like kind of a top NFL team. Do they have sort of the same legacy kind of fan base in the city of LA, maybe the same way like, the Packers do in Green Bay? But with committed ownership and, with good management and the spending and the way they've just been able, they've been committed to the process of building the team. Like, it is a good, it's, if we were using college terms, it'd be a team with really good resources to be the head coach of. So McVay is definitely it's difficult for another NFL team to go out there and pursue McVay and be like, hey, do you want to necessarily jump ship over to this franchise? I think if we were, just looking at brands, of course, the Cowboy brand would be, if it would McVay be the Cowboys head coach or something like that, we get that, with the Cowboys quarterback or something like that. But the Jerry Jones factor, hey, the Remington pod take on Jerry Jones, would he leave, Kroenke? I don't know. Is Kroenke like a mild-mannered billionaire? I guess we haven't been in the room with him, but he does seem to, of course, have more successful teams, at least recently, than Jerry Jones. Has Kroenke won as many titles across sports? Because, Jerry Jones, well, I don't want to say he only has the Cowboys. We gotta double check Jerry Jones' sports portfolio, I guess, but Kroenke, of course, does also own the Denver Nuggets, so they did win the title a couple years there, and he had that run where it's like, the Rams just won the title. It's not like this. Well, I guess the city of LA was winning titles there for a second. They have the Dodgers and the Rams winning championships. Did the Kings win a championship too? Maybe, I'm not sure. But the Kroenke sports business was definitely doing very well because Denver was winning, LA was winning, and maybe they do own the Kings also. I think there might be, or maybe it's the Avalanche. I don't know. Again, I guess we'd also have to double check the Kroenke sports portfolio. But regardless, they do seem to have, again, be generating better results from their teams over the last couple of years. But for Cignetti, he does, again, give the vibes of a college coach, respectfully. And I'm not saying that, he wouldn't be successful in the NFL. I just feel like his ability to dominate in college, quote unquote dominate, again, I guess it's still earlier in his run at a Power 5 school to see how dominant he is compared to some of these guys. But I would see his ability to dominate in, again, and I hate to throw out, comparing somebody to Saban in college is, and, I don't know if I don't think it's disrespectful to the other guys to compare Saban to those guys, but I think it is like comparing somebody to MJ in the NBA or, comparing somebody to Brady. And it's just, it is the most extreme comparison that you can make. If there's a guy that's good at 3-point shooting, it's like, and he's a point guard, it's like, is he just going to be Steph Curry now? If there's, kind of a skinny forward who can get shots from the perimeter, it's like, is he the next Kevin Durant? Like, we just immediately go to the extreme comparisons. I get it. But, again, he is also at the top of the game. So at some point, the comparisons are going to level up. But I think he does have the ability to be a little bit more of a Saban in college than maybe he does, the ability to be like Belichick in NFL. But I wouldn't put it, I wouldn't doubt it. But, it does seem like sometimes those ecosystems are a little bit different as well, too, where the college stuff, if you're making waves and building your name in the college game, that's what you're trying to pursue. And if you're going for the NFL, then, you're obviously going assistant routes and things like that, maybe more so than college head coach. And I'm trying to think of even... maybe you get like the NFL coach goes to college and then gets the, like Matt Rule, maybe if he continues to build his name up in college, he would get back into the NFL at some point. But again, he's already kind of proven that maybe he would make that jump as well too. So is he the last one that has, I'm sure there's somebody that's coaching right now that I'm not thinking of that has, that was just at a college team at his last stop. I guess, hey, yo, Chet, of course, our own guy. Hey, yo, shout out Harbaugh. But, I guess he's also, he's made the jump back and forth a couple of times at this point. But, yeah, so I guess he is the last one. But he always had the NFL flirtation part of it. He was also an NFL quarterback. I don't know if that makes it a little bit different. Like, shout out to Cignetti. I guess I just don't know if he was an NFL quarterback. I wouldn't be disrespectful again. But, was he as good of an NFL quarterback as Harbaugh? Harbaugh almost made a Super Bowl one year with the Colts. So, was he every year a great quarterback like some guys? We're not, obviously, I don't know if he's got a statue in the Hall of Fame as a quarterback. But he was, again, a really competitive, really great player. So, you got to give him his respect there. But Yeah, could we see potentially Cignetti just take Alabama, just start taking the DeBoer job if they get the win? Because again, that would to me be the only one where in it you have to also talk availability as well too. Like we've said before, would Oregon move on from Dan Lanning to get Curt Cignetti? As much as that would be like, hey, they're really taking a swing there. I don't know if they called the pod, if we would necessarily advise them to do that. Like Dan Lanning's still pretty good. And, again, also just hasn't had the same, it just is at a different spot of the timeline as well, too. I guess we probably got to Google Cignetti's age. If Cignetti's like 42, then I'm going to feel bad. But, he also just, again, I guess maybe it's just the aura that he has. He has and maybe we don't even Google the age as well, just to keep it like that. It's just, he does have the vibes of a guy who's been around a little bit more in in the kind of weathered, been through the storms, been through the battles, nothing really bothers him, but he just, do you want to say he has an answer for everything? But just that top level confidence where you don't want to say that, Dan Lanning's confidence is like an arrogance almost, because there is he is a really good leader, and his ability to rally that team for big games, like you do have to really respect that. But again, maybe sometimes from it being sort of the quote unquote young hotshot head coach, does it approach a little bit differently? Even Deion, like shout out, Deion obviously a newer name in college when he was a rising, but of course still a veteran guy as well. So, respect to Deion. But, it's not like Deion just got out of the NFL and now all of a sudden has started to pursue college and is like, prime time still like flash, obviously prime time still flashy, you still prime time all the time, but I guess just not like straight out of the NFL post playing Deion. I guess he's been a legacy TV guy for a while, but still, he's still been continuing to garner respect and build the legacy of prime time. So it's not like he was again sort of walking into college football, and he was as a new coach, but not necessarily as a new personality per se. And again, Cignetti's a new personality, but is he? I was I was watching Romancing the Stone on Tubi earlier because shout out, we'll watch anything with Michael Douglas, but that's one of the highlight Michael Douglases, and I've never seen it before, and it hasn't really, at least I haven't caught it on streaming in a while. Maybe if it has been, it's just been on like a service that we haven't had. I don't know if it's been buried on like MGM Plus or something, but it finally has made its way over to Tubi. Tubi has, Tubi's the last couple of months have really been great. I'm not gonna lie. I think we've said it before, but Tubi's throwing heat right now. It is what it is. But there was a section this was now we're going back a couple of days. Tubi, the watch. We guys could do Tubi Wrapped and see what our minutes are for the year. I'm not sure, but there was, now I don't even remember what movie we watched, but we watched a movie and then there was autoplay options. It was like 3 really prestigious movies. It was two of them were Man on Fire and Wolf of Wall Street. And I forget what the third one was. Maybe it was like The Dark Knight Rises, because the Dark Knight trilogy is just on there now as well too. And then the option that it ended up auto-playing for us, so those were ended up being options 2, 3, and 4. But the number 1 option and the option that it auto-played was the Carlito's Way sequel, Carlito's Way's Rise to Power, which, again, we didn't play it. Tubi auto-played it. It does star, one P. Diddy, and it stars, I think John Leguizamo's back. I don't even know if he was Benny Blanco from the Bronx in that movie. It was just like, wait a second, what is this? And why is this the one that Tubi's auto-playing? But, now all of a sudden we're watching Carlito's Way, Rise to Power. So, unfortunately the movie's titled Carlito's Way as well, too. It's probably also just going to get watched for a little bit. It is what it is. And, if you just blindly tell us, okay, there's a movie with like 90s hip hop personalities in it, do you want to watch it? Again, if you don't even tell us who's starring in it, what is the movie, we're probably like, yeah, I'll probably watch it. So if you hit us with, oh, it's Carlito's Way's Rise to Power starring P. Diddy, we'd be like, oh, I don't know if that's the one that we were drafting first overall. But I guess it, in the Venn diagram that we were talking about, it does overlap there in some ways. But yeah, Tubi's just like, you could watch, 3 of the greatest action movies of, I guess, it's Wolf of Wall Street an action movie, but yeah, Scorsese is an action. He fits right into that. If you're watching action movies, you're probably also watching Scorsese's. It is what it is. But it's like you could watch these 3 prestigious. I think Man on Fire counts as a prestige movie for sure, right? That's prestige cinema. That's right up there with The Dark Knight and Wolf of Wall Street. So it's like you could watch 3 of the greatest movies of the century or Carlito's Way, Rise to Power. And that did Tubi's like, oh, I forgot, I'm Tubi. I'm going to play Carlito's Way, Rise to Power. So I don't know, is that what that has? Is Kurt Signetti as the Carlito's Way, the first edition of the movie? Oh, I guess here's what we were going to say. We were going to talk about, yeah, you know, he's a better coach than, the coach rating is more similar to Carlito's Way, the first movie, obviously, than it is the second movie. But, you know, Michael Douglas being a guy, back to Romancing the Stone, that was a guy that made his career breaks a little bit later in his career. You know, is Signetti sort of following the same path? I don't, you know, is that a perfect correlation? I'm not sure. But regardless, if Alabama does win against Oklahoma, look out, Kalen DeBoer. He better win that next game against Signetti or it's going to get really tough. Because, again, that could be the one. That could be the one. Kiffin's already gone. You know, he's not going to go to Bama. I don't think they were going to hire him. And then if anybody, I guess, like we've said before, would they, and maybe we were saying this back when Saban first left, should they potentially go to Ryan Day and be like, hey, you know, we at least got to make the offer? I'm sure they probably even did as well, too. But otherwise, I guess you, of course, took Saban from LSU. So you do hire coaches from your rivals. You could hire Kirby Smart as well. But Signetti would be the one. Indiana, respectfully, a little bit still of a school tier-wise, kind of underneath these other ones. Maybe he confidently can bring it up to that level. I mean, he already has. But for him to, like we're saying, have the full power of, you know, one of these major college programs behind him would just be, you know, that last step, of course, of his rise to power. I guess if he was in the, you know, the Carlito's way, the Signetti's way, rise to power, Chet, hey, yo, can we get a graphic? I don't know if ESPN's allowed to, you know, if we're allowed to make graphics that in movies, you know, starring a certain guy. Maybe we just stick to graphics in the movie starring the Pacino because it's better anyways. But, you know, I guess rise to power just as a title, as a subtitle for Signetti's run as well, too, could be kind of appropriate. So shout out. And, you know, kind of quickly taking over. I know Carlito was a veteran and then, of course, went to prison. But when he was back, and, you know, he's starting from ground zero, he still has that respect of being Carlito Brigante. But, you know, he is able to work his way quickly, take back over as well, too. Or does he really? I guess he takes over the club a little bit. Does he take over the game the same way? I guess he's not really trying to. You know, he's just trying to make his money and get out. It is what it is. But, yeah, shout out. Okay, I don't know if we've really broken down any of the college football playoff rankings, but, yeah, Indiana, it's exciting that they were able to be Big Ten champions. You know, we have to be careful what we wish for. Of course, last year we thought that Michigan getting the win versus Ohio State was what we wanted, and it turns out it ended up powering them to a national title. So we wanted Indiana to get the Big Ten championship to stop Ohio State, and hopefully this doesn't motivate them to another national title. It is what it is. But it was a little bit of a game where the quarterback experience did matter a little bit, and I don't think Sayan's a true freshman. I think he was there last year, but of course, you know, shout out Will Howard was having a great year. Did Sayan? Maybe he played a couple. You know, who knows? He might have played in certain situations. Maybe a blowout. Maybe pause. Maybe. You know, Will Howard I'm sure he scrambled a couple times, maybe even just lost his helmet and he had to sit out for a play. But I'm sure there's a couple plays where Will Howard had to sit out. It is what it is. But, yeah, this is his first season as, of course, a major starter. And there was some moment you saw last week, you know, you hate to say it, but it was a great job of recovering from that early interception and continuing to power that offense to get that win. Though, of course, what was the score for that game? Like 27-9. So, you know, you're not necessarily going to look at that game and think, oh, did Michigan have a chance per se, especially in the way that score is set up as well, too. I guess, you know, it's almost 3 touchdowns, but it's also a single digit versus a 20. So it's like, you know, kind of weird numbers, but now, you know, Michigan fans making excuses. Ayo, it is what it is. But also Michigan was hanging around a little bit. Again, the offense was never quite generating enough to be able to, you know, really think, oh, are we going to win this game? But if we were, you know, again, the defense was not letting Ohio State totally pull away throughout the course of that one. And there was, you know, like Joel Klatt and Gus Johnson. I guess maybe we don't want to put this on our guy Gus, you know, Michigan alum. But, you know, Joel Klatt kept saying, oh, this is what Ohio State has done to, or this is what Michigan has done to Ohio State over the last couple of years, the ground game, closing the game out. And it's like, yeah, I guess Ohio State is being successful on the ground, but also we've put up like 40 points in the run game last couple of years. We've had multiple like 50 and 70-yard touchdowns. So again, I want to put up bulletin board material. Ryan Day's like, well, now we have to win the game and have 70-yard touchdowns. Like, okay, now the goals are becoming even more crazy. But I think our ability to win in the run game is still a little bit more dominant. It is what it is. I mean, you got to give them credit for their receivers if that's the way that they're going to respond in the argument. Shout out, your receivers are better. What can we say there? But if you want to talk about winning at the line of scrimmage, I get you guys got the better in that game. But if you want to talk about which school does it better, hey yo, I mean it's the maize and blue. We don't even need to argue about that. It is what it is. In the trenches, one of the best of all time. But yeah, regardless, we'll see if the motivation is there for them to get that run. But yeah, Mendoza, like we were saying, was I don't know if neither quarterback was like. There was definitely some good plays and some good level quarterback play throughout. And Mendoza, of course, was clutch for Indiana as well, too. But Sayan had a couple of moments where there was some inexperience that did show a little bit. And again, Big Ten championship, big moment. You can say however you want, costly for the team, hey, yo. But they're still, of course, having a very great chance to win the national title. And that, we're saying that was inexperience. Well, guess what? He just got experience there. So that type of experience is also going to be good for them in that type of run. So you can't discredit his ability to, to work through a moment like that and be better the next time. Something like some, big level games and maybe some of those similar, I don't know, coverages that he fell for, whatever he struggled, whatever thing he wasn't seeing or ever little mistake, misread, whatever it would have been. His ability to correct those going forward. And again, Day as a quarterback coach as well, too, would be a guy that could definitely, help him with setting up for success for the playoffs. But yeah, that was, an important fact that it was like, okay, Mendoza maybe has seen a little bit more college football at this point as well, too. And I still don't really know where I see him as an NFL guy. I mean, we can't doubt a guy that keeps on winning. That's obviously a big rule that Sam would apply for watching any level of in any sport as well too. The players, it's obviously the ones that are winning, but for college, if they're going to be powering these teams to wins at the quarterback position, you definitely got to take that into consideration. And he has. We've seen the interviews, we've seen the IQ stuff, and, we saw some of the leadership stuff as well, too, in the post-game press conference, but it was a weird, again, start to finish pause for the game where the first play of the game, he just gets absolutely just run, the defensive lineman, it's just like a brick wall, just completely knocks him out unconscious, where you think that, is he going to have to, learn to walk again before he plays football? It looked bad for a second, but then, this is another extreme comparison now that I think about it as well too. Willis Reed, of course, everybody gets compared to Willis Reed that gets injured and returns, but he will, and maybe respect to Willis Reed, but he Willis Reeded it. Pause, and was able to be back for another play. Alberto Mendoza was able to get at least one snap in the Big Ten championship game, and then returned and again played pretty well. It was clear that he just took a really big hit at that point. Just the defender with a big rip on the pause, and then. He was, able to be fine after he was able to collect himself a little bit. But then just the way he was able to censor himself as well, too, in the post-game press conference, where if you're ever going to, drop a swear or something, if you're winning a championship type moment, and I get a Big Ten championship, there's still the national title, but, in college sports, and especially college football, I would, because college basketball, you do have the two. You have the regular season and the tournament. So maybe the exclusivity of the one conference title does make the football one a little bit more special. But, that isn't, you can say that isn't a season level accomplishment, winning a conference tournament. And then, yeah, if you're lucky enough to be able to get the next opportunity to win the national championship, then that is also on the table as well. But the fact that he hit it with the what did he say? We're flipping champs now. I did have to rewind the live stream that I was watching and double check. I was like, wait, what did he just say? I was like, well, first I had to double check because I was, do I like this quarterback more if he's swearing on TV? Because again, I feel like you can get away with it in a championship moment. The reporter's like, oh, hey, we're alive. But it's like, oh, we're emotional. Pause, because we just won a game. So, I was like, wait a second. Is Mendoza cool? Like, what's happening? He can break down plays and swear in a press conference. But then it was like, oh, wait a second. He said flipping champions? Like, what is happening there? And now, because of what we saw online at some point, somebody compared him to Andrew Luck with the IQ standpoint, and now maybe we're a little like, hey, yo, there's only one Andrew Luck. It's Andrew Luck. But, is Mendoza going to be the GM for Indiana in a decade? We'll see what happens there. But, is he... Would Andrew Luck have said we're the Pac-12 flipping champs in a press game, in an interview? He may have, but I think it's still like maybe 25% chance. I don't know if he's definitely going to say we're the flipping champs. So, shout out. Again, Mendoza, you like it, keeping it clean. Football, it's a family sport. You love it. But if you can't blame a guy for being passionate about the fact that, again, his team just accomplished the ultimate goals of the season. And, again, is there a little bit of that? I don't know. I think LeBron, is Mendoza going to turn into, pause, is he going to turn to LeBron to standpoint? I don't know where, but you get to a certain level and you can just, you get to just like maybe flex a little bit. So it's like Mendoza is, hey, I'm a top quarterback in college football. I kind of just carry this team. I got, can I blame it on the concussion I got earlier in the game? I don't really remember. Hey, that's right. We're on ABC. The FCC rules got concussed out of me earlier in the game. Hey, yo. But a cool Mendoza moment. Are we like, is this our Cowherd take? We like our quarterbacks swearing after they win the championship? I don't know. Do we have to turn our hat backwards or forwards when we make that take? I'm not sure which way, because Cowherd, hat forward on the QB. But I guess if you like your QB swearing in the press conferences, maybe you're a hat backward guy. But Purdy, I'm trying, because it was Purdy that Cowherd was talking about in that moment, and I think Purdy was hat backward, right? That's why he was saying that. Or was it? Oh, it had to have been Baker. It was definitely Baker, right? He was like Baker's hat backwards and Cowherd's hat forward. I think Cowherd was just anti-Baker at that point, so Cowherd was like, I just don't want my quarterback to be Baker, is essentially what he was, essentially the point that he was making. But, he had to, of course, work around it with some hot takes. But yeah, half forward for the quarterbacks. So, if Cowherd ever watches this episode, this is the right one, because maybe we'll go like every other, like every 15, 20 minutes or so, we'll flip the hat around and then see where Cowherd too. If Cowherd on his shows, like these kids on the live stream these days with the hats backwards, the state of the media, now all of a sudden everything's on YouTube and these guys in hoodies and backwards hats and stuff. I don't know, but I thought I saw Perk in a hoodie on NBA Today. I mean, they'll the days of suits on TV, and we're not gonna sit here and say like, hey, let's get everybody back in a suit. Like, we gotta, hey, yo, as we sit here and like we're saying, I had a hoodie and sweatpants. It is what it is. But there was one fit I saw the other day where Perk was, and it ended up being a day where Perk made an analogy that was so crazy that I was like, wait a second, is this AI? And then it got posted out, it got clipped out later, and I was looking at it, but it still may have been. I don't remember if it actually was AI or not, but I remember looking at the TV at work, seeing like, oh, Perk, casual Friday. Hey, yo, what's going on? And then like, oh, Perk was casual that day. He's making crazy comparisons on ESPN. Hey, yo, was it? Why do I want to say that it was Stephon Diggs and Cardi B related? Maybe I'm making crazy comparisons now. I don't know, but maybe that's a comparison we would have made, an analogy we would have made on ESPN. I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm not sure where Perk was going there. We should mention the Raptors are fighting back against the Celtics a little bit. Hey, yo, fourth quarter is approaching, and the Raptors they're closing in, chat. Hey, yo, it is like a Jurassic movie. Yeah, 124 left in the third, 87-94. So it was a 20-point game earlier. I mean, we gotta give them credit. And the Raptors are a playoff team as well too. In the quarter-ish mark of the season, the Celtics are starting to get a little bit of a groove with this version of the roster. So I don't know if you can call these two squads necessarily a playoff match, because there is the Tatum stuff that is, lingering over this team as well too, about whether or not he will return. But there is a chance that, again, both these teams are going to be, maybe top 6 seeds potentially as well too in the East. But hey, yo, I don't know if we've made it past the the Indiana potential, even Indiana-Alabama game. It is what it is. But I don't know what Oregon versus James Madison. I know, disrespect to James Madison, I guess we would need maybe more college football experts to give us opinion. We need somebody to call in and tell us if James Madison can actually get the upset. And maybe if they had Kurt Cignetti, turn into McDonough over here. Maybe if they had Kurt Cignetti, they would actually be able to win the game. It is what it is, but we'll see if that ends up being Oregon versus Texas Tech. But Texas Tech was able to, end up looking good in that BYU game. The BYU defensive line was, and maybe there was like this one linebacker that was just wrecking the game early. It's like, oh man, is BYU actually the NIL school that's going to be the better one? But then now Texas was able to continue to, and their defense creating turnovers as well too. But also I think BYU had a younger quarterback. So maybe a little, on more extreme version of the Ohio State game, kind of spiraled with the inexperienced guy in the backfield there. But yeah, Texas Tech did look pretty scary as well too. So that Oregon Texas Tech game will be a good, just even matchup, like what will happen in that game type of game. And, I don't know if that game would necessarily have, if Dan Lanning, of course, got beat by James Madison, that would be great. But I don't know if that game would have the same type of, major implications like an Indiana versus Alabama game. And I mean, even if Indiana lost in round 2, that would be a bummer. But like I'm saying, and that is, maybe that's why Cignetti would want to be at this school, but he's such a competitive guy. And that is the thing as well, too. Not to be back on the Cignetti to Alabama point, but, that's the thing as well, is when you're just that level of competition, it's like, okay, well, do I want the opportunity to be able to carry on the legacy that's been made at these schools as well, too? But I don't know what the line is on Tulane Ole Miss, but if Ole Miss is the favorite, maybe there's some should we look there at that? Because maybe there's some opportunity. Again, I don't know if if you haven't been following college football, but they don't have their head coach. He did end up going to LSU. They didn't put LSU in the playoffs instead of Ole Miss. It's obviously it's the team that gets in. It's not like, hey, Lane Kiffin's going to LSU, so now all of a sudden Grant Nussmeier is going to be playing against Tulane. And then maybe Tulane has a better chance against Lane Kiffin with this LSU team versus, what would be better, Lane Kiffin on this LSU team or Lane Kiffin without, or Ole Miss without Lane Kiffin, whichever one the right way is to say it. Oh, do we have bowl games? Hey, maybe just a couple. Do we have Michigan bowl game announced? We may have to look this up here real quick. Hey, apparently we've been slacking on the college football news this morning. Apparently we weren't looking up rankings while we had Romancing the Stone on. It is what it is. But, Michigan, Texas. Oh, chat. Arch Manning versus Bryce Underwood. This is the best. I'll say it right now. I will say it right now, and maybe this is why I guess this is a headlining. It's not necessarily January 1st, but this might be the best non-playoff game. Michigan versus Texas. I mean, 13 versus 18 is a pretty high-level game. Vanderbilt versus Iowa, though. Shout out to the home state team. That's another pretty high-level game as well, too. Here, I guess we could see what just the top 25 matchups in general outside of the playoff ones. Are those the only two at this point? So I don't know. That can't be all the bowl games there. It is what it is. But for the major ones, these are probably the two highest level matchups. So yeah, is Pavia going to play versus Pavia versus Gronowski? Is Gronowski still healthy running around back there? That could be a fun matchup. But yeah, Michigan plus 168, Texas minus 205. If Arch is playing, I don't know if Michigan's a sleeper in that. But hey, we were looking for Tulane is plus 610. Hey, what am I missing? I mean, maybe Lane Kiffin Ewing theory, they don't need him. Trinidad Chambliss is just good on his own. I mean, that is definitely a possibility. But hey, Tulane is plus 610, plus 16 and a half. I mean, I guess Tulane is only, maybe were they not like the top end team all year, just also had a really good conference championship game as well to automatic bid getting in that way. Here, we got to look. Do we have to look up Tulane real quick? What's their record? They did, again, we're the 20th team. So is that like a 3 or a 4 loss? 11-2. 21st in the AP poll. 58th in defense. We don't really have anything on. Points per game, 58th. 50th in defense. So yeah, maybe not stellar on the stats. 37th in the ranking system. So you can see, I guess, on paper where they're developing that difference there. But still, is this team together, chat? Hey, yo. I guess we got to check. Maybe Tulane's got some guys dipping off. I don't know. They got some draft prospects. Is there? Oh, I guess their coach did also leave. Oh, chat. We've got the battle of the coaches that left. Tulane versus Ole Miss. Okay, so it's a moot point. Is that the right way to say it? Is it moot, chat? Or is he still there coaching the playoff games? That's the, I guess we have to look up who is the guy that Florida hired. They hired John Summerall, and I guess is John Summerall coaching the games is what we should double check here. So let's give his name a search and see what we can uncover. Will Florida's new coach John Summerall coach Tulane in the college football playoff? Tulane's his message to Tulane. What John Summerall said on playoff rematch. It does look like he might be playing. Oh, wait a second. Never mind. Tulane announces. Oh, Summerall. Okay, he's leaving. So, yeah, he'd be leaving just in general. But is he coaching in the playoffs? Florida hires Summerall. Summerall will coach the rest of the season. Oh, chat. Okay, so he is gone. That is, I don't know if that's better or worse, actually. So now we don't really know what to think of this game. We'll just have to flip a coin and see where that lands. But, yeah, Tulane with a coach that has been hired but still there versus Ole Miss and a coach that has been hired and told not to return. So I don't know what vibes are better, which situation you'd rather be in. But, you know, this can happen in the NFL sometimes where you've got, like, the coordinators will be coaching in the conference championship game and be like, all of a sudden, wait a second, why is the defensive coordinator for this team now just the head coach of the Carolina Panthers? I guess they hired an offensive coordinator. But, you know, it'll just be this guy is, you know, they still got a Super Bowl to win here. But, you know, I guess you got to make the career moves when the opportunities arise. But, yeah, if the coach is already gone to Florida, does he need the playoff win? Ole Miss being an SEC team, maybe he wants to set the tone early. I don't know. He gets an early SEC win. First win as an SEC head coach. Does that go to his SEC record? Because I guess he's technically not an SEC head coach because he's not coaching an SEC team right now, but he is hired by one. So, yeah, and he's gonna get a win maybe if he wins this game over an SEC team. So we'll have to consult the rules committee, I guess, and see where that falls. James Madison is 20.5 plus 10 to 1 plus 1,000 in that. I don't know if I'm tempted to just bet it for the chaos sense of things. Maybe you have to, just to say you did it, just in case. Pause. But hey, yo. But yeah, it does seem like Oregon may be okay there. Texas A&M, the early favorite over Miami. Alabama is the favorite over Oklahoma. Venables versus Kalen DeBoer. What a matchup, chat. What a matchup. Penn State versus Clemson. Ooh, the could have been game, chat. This could have been a top 10. This could have been a playoff game. I guess, you know, Michigan, Texas could have been a playoff game. We can't talk smack there, but neither of these teams are ranked, so it could have been a ranked bowl game as well too. It could have almost been a playoff game, more like Texas and Michigan was almost a playoff game. So are they worse off at the end of the day? Who knows? But yeah, then we'll get, of course, those by teams filtered into the mix next time. And of course, they did change up the fact that now it's not just like all the conference champions that get the bye. You know, it is the top team. So Indiana and Ohio State still both get byes in the playoffs, even though Ohio State lost the conference championship. So their losing literally means less and less every year. It is what it is. They continue to drop big games and big moments, and then all of a sudden it's meaningless for the results of the season. But, you know, Texas A&M and Miami are fun matchups as well, too. And then that Georgia game, you know, Ohio State versus Georgia has good history there, I guess, if they play each other. But that seems to be the better, I don't know, is that the better side of the bracket? I guess Georgia's probably the best team between Texas A&M and Oregon or Texas Tech. And yeah, I guess also Texas A&M, but, you know, Texas Tech and Alabama and Oregon and Oklahoma in that side. Because, you know, if we're comparing it, Indiana's challenge versus Ohio State's challenge. But that did feel a little like I'm saying, just the quarterbacks both were really, really good in that game. You could see the defenses were evenly matched. The skill guys were still making plays throughout. So that would not be surprised if those were actually, shockingly, the two best teams in the college football landscape, and they are still, ranked 1 and 2. But, and, again, can you say it felt like a championship? I guess you can say it felt like a championship level matchup. I guess you can't say it felt like a championship game per se, because, again, both these teams still have the same opportunity to win the championship itself. But just in terms of quality of play, the evenness of the matchup there was definitely pretty crazy. So we do have halftime approaching for the late slate. Rams have reclaimed the lead, 17-10. And this Packers-Bears game continues to be a little bit of an ugly one. Caleb Williams, 2 for 9 to start. It is what it is. The vibes have been at least restored a little bit in the fact that, you don't want to be disrespectful, but in the fact they haven't been bad as of late. Again, the Bears at 9-3. In some ways, if the Bears, at 9-3, there is a world where you're like, does that mean Caleb Williams is in the MVP conversation? Like, if we're going back to, I don't know how many years ago at this point, to where his first year, not his first year in college, but that first year at USC, his Heisman Trophy year, where he was super, of course, going crazy. The highlights are all over the place. If we went back to that time and said he's going to be on the Bears and he's going to turn them around, and with this new coach, they're going to be, the record's going to progress this way and they're going to be 9-3. And I guess if we lead the witness and say he's going to turn around, maybe they would, think of it in a different way. But also, maybe if you're just saying, hey, he's going to get on this team and the success is going to change over time like this, then maybe you would think, oh, Caleb Williams, of course, is becoming that MVP type player that we were all thinking that he's going to be in this moment. And hey, the Raptors had the lead. So it's 199. Again, this game is at home, so I don't know if that matters. But is this the sign that the Celtics are actually a good team now? They've given up a 20-point lead. Is that what Tatum and Brown, not the first time? Yeah, respectfully, they're obviously a great duo. Can they, from time to time, let a team get back in the game? It will happen. So is Tatum traveling? Tatum, I think he does travel with the team. Shout out. He's on the sideline. So does it still count as Tatum and Brown dropping the game? I'm not sure. Brown double teamed. Oh, the pass to Derek White's a little bit hectic, but he still is able to get the 3. Shout out. So the Raptors did score on the other end before that. So now 102-102. The game is tied. But yeah, again, with the Bears just being the best team in the NFC, you would think that there is an opportunity there for your quarterback to be winning in those storyline type of ways, but he just individually hasn't quite claimed them yet. He's had good performances. He's been efficient, hasn't turned the ball over, hasn't compromised the team. But, if we continue, comparisons to thief of joy, so I'm not going to take away the Bears, fun of having a good season so far. But if you are talking about other guys in the league, sometimes this is why other quarterbacks maybe, I don't know, he's maybe hasn't had the greatest stretch of the season as of late, but, a guy like Jalen Hurts at times, his ability to excel in a team has been a little bit more than, what maybe Caleb Williams, and, that's just one direct comparison as well, too. But just to say of what could be potential for a guy maybe even breaking into the MVP conversation, because Hurts has been number 2 in MVP voting in his career as well, too. And again, he is controversial in terms of what people's, opinion of his level of play is, but his team is still really successful, and he does get, decent stats and good notoriety for it as well, too. So Caleb Williams' stats aren't even quite, and, Hurts gets the running factor as well, too, to boost up the stats and help the team win as well, too, that maybe Caleb Williams doesn't quite bring to the table. But again, there is obviously that opportunity there. Maybe if Love, ascends up to the top of the NFC North, is, he's definitely higher up in the MVP odds, and it's a little bit more realistic that he would break through into that conversation at this point. But, like we're saying, there is a chance here for Caleb Williams to claim some of that, quarterback tier territory, you can say. Is he going to start claiming the best quarterback in the MVP tier? Like, I'm not getting crazy, but if he can start moving his way up some quarterback tiers, against like, oh, the efficient play is starting to be there. He's not being detrimental to the team, and now all of a sudden he's excelling in these major moments, and their team is the most competitive team-ish that we have. Because, again, with some of the buys and stuff, and does Philly play Monday, or are they on bye here? Let's double check. Who is the Monday night game? Oh, chat, it's not letting me scroll. We've got Houston versus Houston at Kansas City tonight. And I know, I guess the buys, maybe Philly was on bye, because I know the three of the buys, we had the Patriots, the Panthers, and the Giants. So maybe Philly was the fourth team there. We'll double check the minute. Okay, Philly Chargers, the 49ers were the other team. Shout out. So Eagles Chargers, Monday night, like we're saying, they haven't necessarily played yet this week. So, and the Lions did look really good in the game Thursday night against the Cowboys as well too. But the Bears, you could still make the case. It's like, are they, or are they in the mix? Of course they're in the mix, but how much in the mix are they now as a best team in the NFC? But if we were realistically ranking their quarterbacks, we would still probably be, respectfully, the least confident in the Bears situation compared to some of these other teams. Even the Seahawks right now, Darnold has obviously gotten to much higher levels of quarterback play at this point than the Bears quarterbacking situation has had. Darnold has been in the league for much longer. His ability to, excel in some of these situations. And, Caleb Williams is also changing through and learning coordinators and stuff right now as well. So Darnold moving around, maybe his ability to pick some of that stuff up is a little bit quicker. And then, once he actually finds good landing spots, good systems for him, then he's able to excel as well too now because he's a little bit of a veteran. But yeah, they are, you would still probably be more confident in Darnold in a playoff game than you would Caleb Williams. Again, just in this matchup as well, you'd still probably take Jordan Love in the end of the season. There's still a couple of weeks left. We may have a different answer by then if, again, Caleb Williams, that opportunity is there. But just as we stand right now, it would still probably be, in my opinion, Darnold, obviously Stafford, like we're saying, Love, Goff. I would just have more confidence in any of those options. And Jalen Hurts as well, too. And probably the 49ers, that's a little bit of the Shanahan factor. And I don't know if I would say, is that fair? Caleb Williams on the 49ers versus Purdy on the 49ers. But Purdy's been very good when he's been back this year as well, too. So I think you'd have to say you'd be more in, obviously with him being good in the playoffs in the past, you'd probably have to say Purdy over Caleb Williams in a Shanahan system at this point as well. So not to say that again, we're saying that Caleb Williams is, and we don't want to keep moving the bar on him unfairly. It is what it is. But I'm just saying if we're now putting this team into the tier of contenders and saying we have to compare this team against other contenders, what's going to happen, that is something that we would all definitely look at and be like, hey, they're probably not quite up to par yet on that level as they need to be. And they have been, I think, maximizing a lot of the other parts of the roster as well, too. I mean, we may have made this comparison before as well, but you've got the Broncos playing the Raiders right now in the late window, and they seem to be a little bit in that same spot where it's like, you're looking at the AFC right now, it's like, ooh, there is territory to claim. Like, the conference is there. And I mean, I know the Bills were able to get the win today, but maybe the chaos of that game just continues to prove that there is, again, a quote-unquote opening for a team to be able to break through and win it this year. And in the NFC, there hasn't still been a team that's really laid claim as well, too. That is necessarily like main top favorite. But if you are either of these teams, you're looking at your Broncos in the AFC, if you're the Bears in the NFC, you're looking at your quarterback situation and just going, okay, maybe if we can manage what we have now, and if obviously our defenses are playing perfect and these guys are not turning the ball over and they're actually able to connect on the third downs, we can make this work. But if you were to bring in, and obviously, Stafford is, again, MVP level this year. If we're going to, if you're going to bring in any of the great quarterbacks, but if you're going to bring in anybody that's able to get to that extra level of the improvise and see the defense and the playmaking, then maybe those types of teams would be a little bit more of a lock as well, too. And obviously, we don't want necessarily, another team outside of our teams to be the monopolies. Are we okay if the Chiefs are, going to win a couple Super Bowls for Sam's sake? I mean, I feel like it was definitely the right amount of time as a dynasty. It got a couple of Super Bowls, great memories. The peak of Sam's sports fandom. I hope he realizes it. Mahomes will never be the same again. It is what it is. But right when it felt like they were going to make the villain turn, they've started to take a little bit of a step back, and now they're maybe not just like, oh yeah, just, becoming this disgusting, hated America's villain type of team. as disgusting and hated is obviously crazy terms, but just in a football type of way. They don't necessarily become that villain team that we're all cheering against. They maybe did a little bit, but at least, I guess respect to the Patriots for being villains for like 20 years as well too. But they haven't necessarily been on pace to be quite that. But regardless, they got their little bit of run. We're happy for them. We're glad they're able to get the Super Bowl wins, experience the moments. Pause. Like Mahomes is our guy as well too, so we're happy that Mahomes was able to. He's our guy. We just like watching Mahomes. We liked him in college, so we're happy that he was able to have some success in the league. I think that went about as well as it could have been for NFL career so far. But hey, Jordan Love with the touchdown strike. Speaking of it went as good as it could have gone. That touchdown strike right there was a great throw. Bo Melton, good throw news. Bo Melton in the end zone for the touchdown, open enough to give Jordan Love a pretty easy window there. Here we got a replay. Is that the safety way off in the slot? Hey, I don't know if we had zone or man there, but just giving him so much room. And Melton just kind of breaks away from in the middle. The safety kind of started to backpedal. Oh, yeah, no cover 2. But there's nobody in the back half of the field, so I'm just kind of reading the closed captioning here as it goes by. But, yeah, it did look like the safety was a little bit like he could have, been over for man. Is that Brisker there? But, yeah, he just kind of continued to backpedal, out toward the pylon. And then Melton was just breaking in toward the middle of the field and just kept kind of running away from the defender. And the defender never went back over. And I guess there was nobody on the other side to clean up, pause the help there. And he was wide open for the touchdown. So 38 seconds left in the half there, and they are able to get the score. The Rams are about to go into halftime as well, and the Broncos are up as that half just starts. So 14 to 7 as the third quarter gets underway there. So we've got more Week 14 action to continue to recap. The good, the bad, and the ugly of it all, chat. The playoffs, the implications, maybe the NBA that's going to be on as well too. We're just hanging out, watching sports. It's Week 14. We're here, we're chilling, and don't go anywhere because we've got, like we said, more reactions, more exciting plays. I mean, these games are close and impactful as well too. So stay tuned, chat. We'll be right back. right, we are back. We got to give a quick update on Celtics versus Raptors. The Raptors look like they were going to blow their chance to make the comeback victory. We're down by 10 with a little 90 seconds left, and all of a sudden, they got the steal, and Mamushvili sweeping in for the dunk in transition. So it is an 8-point game, and was it an and one? So they can make it a 7. Mamushvili, the leading tackler in the history of the Chiefs. So he's at the free throw line, and there we go. It's 110 to 107. If they get a stop, I guess could be interesting. We can't switch it quite yet, but we can dive into the Week 14 games that have already happened. I mean, is it fair to start with Colts versus Jags? I guess it was. Well, Ravens-Steelers was also a divisional type of game as well, too. Well, divisional seeding, divisional leading type of game, more specifically, if we continue to get the filter words in there. But Colts versus Jags, and it spiraled a little bit because of the Daniel Jones injury. I mean, the headlines is Daniel Jones is now injured. Of course, they were kind of saying out for the game, but they also just were like blatantly saying it was an Achilles injury. So I don't know if that means he's going to be out for the year, but he was in a boot. And I mean, you could be like, oh, well, delusional Colts fans want Daniel Jones to return. I mean, I guess there was obviously, like we're saying, the AFC is open for the Super Bowl. So I'm not going to sit here and say that, is it impossible for us to, again, make the run? We've been maybe starting to try to talk ourselves into it at some point this year. But it was definitely a team that, and we have to remember as well, too, we are in that post-Thanksgiving. Don't forget what time of year it is, chat. We are in that post-Thanksgiving stretch of the season. And, again, it does seem like, of course, there are 4, weeks after this, I guess, but 5 weeks of the season left may not seem like a ton of time, but that is really gonna, of course, there's gonna be somebody that picks up steam. There's gonna be a couple teams that really drop off over that time, and not to put our own team on blast like that, but maybe the Colts would have been a team that started to trend the wrong direction post Thanksgiving. It did seem like the confidence again, if the playoffs were even starting now, was just starting to slip in general for this team. And now, of course, the Jags have taken sole control of the AFC South. But they were already saying that Daniel Jones was playing through some kind of fractured fibula. So clearly, I'm not, he's some kind of some Iron Man or something like that. His ability to fight through his injuries is already there. But I don't know if this might be the one that ends up probably taking him down for the rest of the year. It is what it is. So now there is, of course, the greater implications of course, us being maybe out of the window in general if we lose the quarterback play. I mean, is respect to Daniel Jones that he is in some ways that impactful as well too, where if you take him off the team. In the past, there would have been Daniel Jones Ewing theory where it's like, oh, could they get the same level of quarterback play out of somebody else? And maybe, again, recently it hasn't been Daniel Jones, like transcendent first couple of weeks of the season. Maybe Riley Leonard's stats will be a little bit closer to that. Maybe it's a little bit more attainable, but again, the high level of Daniel Jones is probably still a little bit more than what Riley Leonard can provide this year. I mean, with no disrespect to Riley Leonard, of course. Daniel Jones is a little bit more veteran at this point as well. Like we're saying, a little bit more experience in the league. But he may have also, kind of Sam Darnold this situation all the way through. He, of course, was making the career turnaround that Sam Darnold was having last year, where Darnold was able to be in the MVP conversation for a little bit more of the season. I don't know if Daniel Jones ever really got into the MVP conversation. Maybe for the first couple of weeks. But again, Taylor as well too. But just him being the high-level draft pick that was finding success finally in a new system under a new coach and revitalizing his career. But Darnold had those couple of games at the end of the year where, the Vikings ultimately were like, well, I guess the ceiling of this team is limited with Darnold as our guy, and we're going to have to try to go a different direction. And make no mistake, we're going to get into that game. Our guy McCarthy, looking okay today. Yes, sir. But this may be a situation now where, unfortunately, Daniel Jones is kind of, and I don't want to, the man just got hurt, so, you don't want to be unfair to his long-term potential. And he is clearly a starting quarterback in the league as well, too. So I think, like we've said before, and sometimes when you're talking about like a coach maybe getting replaced or something like that, it is a little bit with the expectation that it's like, maybe it's situational that's not working out, but clearly he's a guy that, we're not just taking a job away. It's just like relocation, can we relocate? what's going on here? Sam Darnold was going to get paid by somebody. Somebody was going to need to bring in a starting level quarterback in free agency. He wasn't going to be necessarily out of a job. But in terms of how Minnesota wanted to construct their team going forward, they needed to decide if they wanted, of course, to lock down a long-term option like that at the position at that big of a number. And the Colts were definitely, again, trending at this part of the season where Daniel Jones was going to have a 4-year, I don't know, at this point, is it 50? Is it 50 million? Like that we would have had to give Daniel Jones? I don't know if he would have gotten Brock Purdy money. I guess maybe if Daniel Jones was in the conference championship game. But if he's at 40 mil, I wouldn't necessarily have been shocked if a Pro Bowl level quarterback got overpaid a little bit. And it's like now all of a sudden we've got Daniel Jones on a 4-year, $160 million contract. And he is the right now the long-term option for the team. But the last couple of weeks, 3-4 in the last 4 games that he has started and, I guess played all the way through. And then this one, now will be, of course, 4-5 in those last couple of games. But I don't know if you can necessarily give him the loss, even though statistically, it might go that way. And, against Houston, no picks. Against Kansas City, no picks. It's not like he was disastrous in either of those games. But, again, wasn't quite able to climb to that extra level and get those wins. And then, unfortunately, so I don't want to do like the Van Fleet thing where Van Fleet got hurt. Like he tore his ACL in Houston. Then everybody's immediately, well, like the contract is still very tradable. Like you can, throw that number in if you need to trade him for a superstar. And it's like, okay, well, that would have probably been the case even if he was healthy. But, he just got hurt. So obviously, we got to, the injury's got to get cold. I don't know what the right terminology is there. Hey, yo. But pause. I don't know if that's a pause. We'll just a cautionary pause just in case. But again, it's like Daniel Jones. We got to at least let the man recover a little bit, settle back in or something. But again, I don't know if he kind of Sam Darnold the situation just in general with the way the team was looking here over the last couple of weeks, or the Colts could be in a we don't necessarily have the McCarthy as well too. I don't know if Riley Leonard is the guy where it's like, well, Daniel Jones is not going to be the quarterback, so let's give Riley Leonard the reins. Of course, we did trade our first round pick now for Sauce Gardner, who is he out for the year officially? And then I don't even remember his injury. I think we kind of just mentally blocked that out because again we traded 2 first-round picks for it. So now, like we said before, the Jets are going to be rebuilding this team off of the backs of the Daniel Jones injury. I guess I was going to say once again helping out a New York team. Maybe for once helping out a New York team. Hey, shout out Daniel Jones again. He just got hurt, so we don't want to be disrespectful. But so and. I don't know, we got to tread lightly on where we were thinking, because this was a delicate season for, okay, we could definitely do well, but, is this going to be this year, and then what does the next 5 years of Colts fandom look like versus, and what is still the next 5 years of Colts fandom look like? We're not necessarily locked in at the quarterback spot either way, Daniel Jones or not, but I don't know if the money thing, the contract, what does that look like? And maybe, it gets team friendly as well too, but we'll see, as a result of just even the way the team was playing over the last couple of weeks, what would potentially end up happening there. Shout out, okay, Boston does end up getting the win. I think Denver's about to play. Let's see if we can get this one queued up here. If we can sneaky get the remote lined up right, of course. We did not. Hey, yo, chat, we'll get the right signal to the right TV here. If we can get the red zone queued back up on 1, and then maybe if we like bounce the signal off a curtain or something like that, it'll be more accurate to the right TV. Okay, wait a second. I think we got the right angle. Oh no, wait. We're messing with both of them. There used to be a TV set up at an old job that was like this. So you think we'd have the reps of getting, pointing the Roku to the right TV. But apparently we're out of practice a little bit. So we may have to... Oh, I think we're getting it here. Oh, is LaMelo playing? They're still using LaMelo's picture to promote Charlotte when we click on the team on League Pass. So it tricks us every time. It is what it is. LaMelo versus Jokic. might end up being Knuppel versus Jokic. So shout out. I don't know if that's the same sort of high level matchup, but Knuppel has been, of course, rookie of the year contender, so we got to give him his respect. It is what it is. But yeah, shout out. The Colts are cooked for this year. We've lost an AFC contender. The Jags are probably gonna, or I guess they are definitely in more of a position now to win the AFC South, and I guess so are the Texans, because of course Stroud is getting back and at least healthier now as well. 7-5. So yeah, if they get the win against Kansas City, of course, that would almost probably put Kansas City out of the playoffs at this point at 6-7. You would imagine 7 losses would be, 7 losses at this point still is tough to imagine a team making the playoffs. You'd have to win your division, but it's right on the borderline there. But Houston would be now record-wise, of course, in alignment with they would be close to the Jags. They would have the same record as the Colts. So they would be alive for the AFC South as well, too. And then again, with the health of their team, would be in a little bit of a better spot over the next couple of weeks. So, again, would we have trusted the Colts team to win 3 or 4 consecutive playoff games? It would have been a little bit of an ask, but at least in terms of a playoff picture, maybe we are potentially, trending in a different direction at this point. But yeah, Bills versus Bengals, or are we just skipping over Steelers versus Ravens? Because this could be an interesting one for like ripple effects at the end of the year as well too. And when we were kind of talking about, I don't want to say calling for a job, but we're talking about coaches maybe not being in the right spot. I guess in some ways these coaches have been in the right spot, possibly because they've been there for decades at this point. But both of these guys have also been at this point as well too, decades removed from actually winning the Super Bowl. Was it back-to-back years that they won? What, the Steelers? No, I don't think it was quite that. Maybe there was a giant Super Bowl in there, because the Steelers won in like 10-11 or 11-12, and then the Ravens won in what, 12-13 maybe. So somewhere in those early teens, late aughts, both those teams were winning Super Bowls. I guess Tomlin would have lost the Super Bowl to the Packers in that 10-11 season maybe, because they would have won the Super Bowl last time. If I'm remembering Tomlin winning a Super Bowl, because Cowher would have won the Super Bowl for the Seahawks, or against the Seahawks. Hey, not with the Seahawks. Shout out Sean Alexander and Matt Hasselbeck, but it would have been that Cowher team in the 2005 year that ended up winning the Super Bowl, and then Tomlin in 2008, 2009 would have won the Super Bowl in Pittsburgh. I guess we could just fact check it and look at their pages. But if we're trying to do the barbershop recall, it would have been like 2008, 2009 that he would have been the head coach of the winning team. And then they made the Super Bowl against the Packers and lost. And then, since then, haven't been able to get back. And of course, Harbaugh made the one against his brother, and they were able to win that one. And Harbaugh has had good success without Lamar over the last couple of years, so I don't know if we want to judge him based on 1 year, but also, again, the playoff success has been a little bit lacking over the last couple of years as well. And you don't want to, maybe both those teams kind of go where we were looking at, like Penn State there for a second, where it's like, hey, if you end up moving on from James Franklin, like, where are you going to go as an option that maybe is a better, more competitive option? Is there assistant coaches out there right now that you would feel more confident in than Tomlin and Harbaugh? And I don't know if there's a name that necessarily jumps off the page right now as a main name. Again, to take over for those guys, they're still able to produce competitive teams. And Tomlin, maybe he was getting a little closer. I don't know. His team was literally chanting fire Tomlin. But that still doesn't feel too far off from where we're at in the past for Steelers seasons. We get to kind of halfway plus mark of the season, and they do get a little feisty. They get around that 500 record. But even at 7-6 this year, the fire Tomlin stuff still, and I guess, again, they lose this game, maybe it is a little bit different, but the fire Tomlin stuff still would have seemed a little bit aggressive. This team is still more competitive, I think, game to game, even against the better teams. And maybe, again, the AFC is a little bit more open this year, but this team is, I think, more competitive in that picture as well, too. And I think it is because of Rodgers, of course, and his quarterback play this year on the team. And I was thinking about trying to, watching the game today, and there's a couple of throws that he made, just timing throws on like a third down, where he just kind of, threw the football out there for there was one where he just like threw it out for Austin to run underneath, and he definitely had space again to work with there wasn't like a second defender, I don't think, like immediately running over to cover the play. So again, you can kind of just throw the football out there. But just the, positive touch and accuracy that he was working with was still like, oh man, Rodgers can kind of still make some throws if you need him to make them. And I was trying to think about him now on the Steelers versus like Brady and Tampa. And those Tampa teams were definitely better than this Steelers team. Like if I was picking a roster without a quarterback, I would still much rather have that Tampa Bay roster. Hey, and Stafford trying to get it to Adams down the sideline. It's not that early into the third quarter here, but the Rams have scored again. So 24-10, they are starting to pull away. And are they in field goal range now? They can maybe start to, do a little damage here in this one. Is that our guy Will Johnson getting cooked by Devontae Adams? Oh, no. Oh, did he get the penalty? Trying to wrap her. So you can't feel too bad about the rookie getting, the receiver getting the better of the rookie there. It is what it is. But, yeah, I would say that, again, I don't know if we would necessarily think that the Steelers could go on a run and just rip off a bunch of playoff wins this year. But I wouldn't necessarily be totally shocked, like maybe we said in the past, if they were finding themselves in an AFC championship game and Rodgers is just scary against any of these opponents if they're able to, if he's able to manage against the pressure. And I think Brady maybe was a little bit better against the pressure, but obviously that last year in Tampa, he was really trying to manage not getting hit and then, making some quick passes. And Rodgers is definitely maybe a little closer to that last year Tampa Brady than he was, Super Bowl Tampa Brady per se. But regardless, if Rodgers can have time to even make some of those quick reads and just his IQ and, again, the accuracy that he can still get to, he's still a pretty dangerous quarterback. And they've got to be playing a pace. Like the Steelers defense still probably has got to create a couple of turnovers in the game. So there's definitely, they're 7-6. There's definitely a recipe that they have to have for them to rip off these games. So, again, am I picking them right now to be in the conference title game? But would I be surprised? Maybe I am picking them. I don't know. It just like there's going to be a weird team that wanders in there. So the Steelers maybe feel like an obvious team to trend to kind of pick up there just hanging around because, again, Tomlin as well too. I guess at the end of the day, he still gets that respect. That's what I'm saying. You can't just sit there and chant fire Tomlin and then, like, well, what else are you going to do? Like, Arthur Smith's going to be the interim head coach, and all of a sudden Arthur Smith's there next season. You got him on a 4-year deal. Like, that's cool. But I don't know. It would have to be, can you bring in Cignetti? Could you have gotten James Franklin if Penn State? I guess Penn State would have had to have been, maybe winning the Big Ten at that point. You going to go out and get Ryan Day from Ohio State? Is he going to be an NFL head coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Like, that is one of those franchises that could, because of the history of the franchise, be one of those legacy type jobs. Again, we were talking about Cignetti a little bit earlier, but I don't really know who the guy would be. Maybe we're a little tuned out on the coordinator conversation than we've been in the past, but it doesn't seem like there is the same sort of names that have jumped off the same way the last couple of years as this guy is, really up next for a head coach. Maybe it is some like return guys. Like, I don't know if Saleh is going to get back in the mix as a head coach again or something like that, because you could definitely maybe make some excuses for the New York run. You just look at the fact that he had Zach Wilson for like 30 plus games and you go, maybe we give Robert Saleh another chance. I don't know. But yeah, I just don't know again what the, maybe the Google AI would be able to give us some options. But yeah, maybe this was a little bit of the loser of this game when whoever kind of drops below 500, and we'll see if the Ravens even finish below 500 for the season. But maybe the ripple effects of this would have been felt in the offseason a little bit if there was some sort of team to make a surprise turnover move. And again, I'm not sitting here saying that I would advise the Ravens to move on from John Harbaugh. I'm just saying if we're picking what could be the craziest potential things to happen in the offseason, I think that could be a potential, not to say the Ravens would be, the Ravens announced that they fired John Harbaugh. They would get the respectful, the mutual parting of ways, and he's definitely not on the market for a long time. Like, what are the jobs that, I guess would have to be opened up at that point? Like, I guess, depending on what Tampa does this season, shout out to Todd Bowles. We're not trying to replace we're not trying to, take a brother's job. Hey, shout out. But, I just, what would be the potential opportunities that could just immediately get snatched up and also be a little bit of a winning team. But I guess Harbaugh could take a rebuild as well too. Like, would Cleveland move on from Stefanski and then be like, okay, NFC, the next NFC or AFC West, AFC North, what division is that, Chad? AFC North dominant team, Harbaugh and Shador. I don't know if Shador is necessarily the same skill set as Lamar, but maybe they would talk themselves into that being the next version. But Stefanski's also a decent quarterback coach. I don't know if the game management stuff, but that's the thing. I don't know. Maybe Stefanski, if you're going to have questions about a game management guy, maybe Stefanski is, a better play caller type to have with Shador than Harbaugh. But I don't know. The Giants, do the Giants have a long-term option there? I know that the vibes have been okay over the last couple of weeks. I don't know if the interim just gets promoted. Maybe the Raiders, maybe Brady would make that move. If, Carroll, what did he sign? Only like a 3-year deal. So maybe they're like, hey, this 1 year kind of get in and set the culture right thing. Hey, it worked in 1 season. Like, we got what we needed out of it. We get a long-term option in there in Harbaugh and figure it out. Could definitely be, do the Titans go a different direction this year? Cam Ward, give him an opportunity with a new coach to see what happens. Or even Washington could be an interesting one. I don't know if we're sitting here blaming Dan Quinn for the fact that they've had a lot of injuries, and it doesn't seem like, again, they've had a lot of great luck this year, that's for sure. Cincinnati, another AFC North team that could make a divisional rival type hire as well. They do these teams do it with the players for sure. They'll trade and they'll sign all the players that just torch them in divisional games. So it wouldn't be shocking if they were necessarily doing the same things with coaches as well too. I mean, Miami's been playing well the last couple of weeks. They even won again today. So who's to say that Miami would, even have an opportunity there for head coaching if, they continue to finish the season the way that they have. 12th pick, hey, out of the top 10 is pretty crazy. Or even like we're saying Atlanta as well too. But yeah, Washington with Jaden Daniels could be interesting because the Lamar comparison's there for sure. And maybe the Raiders from a toughness kind of Harbaugh providing some of that defense, special teams attitude to the franchise that maybe they would like. Ooh, do we have Kenny Pickett's in for the Raiders, chat? Hey, Kenny Pickett, the leading passer in the history of the Pittsburgh Panthers. I think he's in the game right now. Did Geno just get benched or did he just get thrown out? Or is he injured? I don't know what happened. He's walking back to the locker room. So it says headed back to the locker room. Pete Carroll's keeping his offense on the field. Maybe we have to go to the social medias and double check. Schefter, can we get a report and see what's going on? I don't know. The Raiders at 2-10. I guess we're just kind of glossing over the fact that they're the third in the draft right now. That does mean they have to have a pretty bad record. And that bad record going into today is 2-10. And it's 21-7 right now against the Broncos. I guess Pickett does have 4th and goal. Well, I guess he doesn't have 4th and goal anymore. He tried to get it to Brock Bowers. Surtain in coverage. It's incomplete. 1st and 10 for the Broncos. They are on the opposite end of the scale right now, 10-2. So yeah, the Carroll thing is gone. Like I was saying, pretty crazy. I mean, we're sitting here saying that they would just part ways from Harbaugh. If you're a team like the Raiders, would you consider a trade? Would you consider trading for Harbaugh? Would you trade a 3rd or a 4th round pick for a head coach? I don't know if there's rules on if it has to only be a 1st or something like that. I don't know if you can trade players for coaches, but I'm pretty sure you can trade picks for coaches. I guess you can in the NBA, right? Should we see in the NFL? Can you trade coaches in the NFL? Let's see what we get here as a potential. They cannot be traded. Oh, never mind. In the NFL, coaches cannot be traded in the same way. What does it say here? Players are. Instead, teams can hire and fire coaches. In rare case, they may negotiate for a coach's services for another team. This typically occurs during the offseason or after the season ends. Ooh, Chad, so maybe the league needs to make an exception. While trading coaches is uncommon, there are notable instances such as Don Shula being traded from Baltimore to Miami. Oh, Chad, the Colts have been involved in 1970. Overall, coaching contracts are complex, often include buyouts, making and trades more intricate than player trades. Oh, wait. So is it possible or is it not? Oh, speaking of Tomlin, here's his picture from an article in 2019. See, chat, we've been going. I guess if you've been having the conversation for 5 years, what does that mean? But also, again, who are you going to find that's better than Harbaugh or better than Tomlin? So I don't know. If looking at the Bears season right now, if you could go back into the offseason and say, hey, we'll switch out Tomlin. And, hey, we're not trying to, again, replace certain characters. But we're not just throwing that term out, trying to throw that term out disrespectfully as well too. But we're not trying to replace certain jobs with certain jobs. But if just to look at them as head coaching jobs, if we can. I know it's not that simple, but just to say, like, if you were able to replace Tomlin with Ben Johnson in the offseason, like, would Steelers fans do that? I don't know if they, again, I don't know what they would. The Bears are pretty good this year, but also, I guess would Ben Johnson and Rodgers, though, could be pretty interesting. I don't know. That might be a fun combo. Again, it's definitely maybe a little bit short term, obviously the Rodgers side of it, but maybe with the offense, X's and O's stuff, they would be a good fit. It's not that trading coaches works. It's if teams agree to a trade involving a head coach, the contract doesn't transfer to his new team. What happens is the two teams agree on compensation in the form of draft picks and or cash that would be exchanged if the new team successfully reaches a new contract with the coach. Oh, okay. So you can get compensation for a coach signing for another team. So again, can you directly trade for a coach? It's difficult to trade an NFL head coach because he has to want to leave his current team and go to the team that is interested in acquiring him. That is, of course, in addition to the two teams agreeing to what compensation should be exchanged for the trade to go down. So I guess it doesn't honestly seem as difficult as they're saying. I guess the path, obviously, to get to a situation where you would maybe get this kind of amicable thing to go down may be difficult. Again, you have to be in a certain spot where you don't want to necessarily fire your coach for 10 years, but then you get 10 years down the road and you're like, maybe we need to change it up a little bit. Speaking of the AFC North, I think we got it right that time. Marvin Lewis is another example of this, but Marvin Lewis never had that Super Bowl to just have in his back pocket for a decade. So I don't know, and again, I don't want to get crazy here. Is Mike Tomlin Marvin Lewis with the Super Bowl? Hey, yo! I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I think Mike Tomlin's, I would rather have Mike Tomlin as a head coach than Marvin Lewis. But again, it is because of the one Super Bowl, so it's doing a lot of work. It is what it is. And Caleb Williams with a nice pass to Kmet down the sideline. We caught that on the red zone. So here, wait a second. We're gonna peek ahead because the red zone is behind the live feed of the game. So we've got the Bears at 1st and goal. Hey yo, 8.5 minutes. The red zone, I guess, is a minute behind the game time right now, but 2nd and 6, so it's pretty close. Fieldage wise, play wise, for that spot on the field. Oh, did he just get picked off or did he just throw a touchdown? Oh, it's a touchdown. It's a touchdown. Second half, Caleb. Zacchaeus Chet Olamide. Zacchaeus. Shout out. Obviously not a new name, but one of the greats. Right through the hands of the defender. Oh, it should have been picked. But it also, eventually it should have been caught as well too. So I don't know if it's a good throw or a bad throw. It's Caleb Williams, slinging it kind of sidearm. It's definitely a type of throw that, and I don't want to say like a new Caleb Williams, an almost interception type of throw, but that kind of sidearm falling to the right a little bit, kind of off balance, scrambling throw that he would maybe make at USC. It's in that vein. So it's fun to see him again making those type of attempts, but definitely, A+ risky there, that's for sure. So they're going for 2. Stats say they haven't made one this year. I don't know, tight end in motion, looking a little shaky. The handoff. Oh, make it. Oh, they push him in. Chat. Hey, yo. I don't know if we have to pause that real quick because anytime we say that, of course, we get training day in our head. It is what it is. Pause. But, yeah, Caleb Williams a touchdown, and the offensive line helping him get that 2-pointer. Hey, yo, was that the center getting in there and just powering him into the end zone? I mean, he basically is. Can they give the center the touchdown? We might have to start we might have to start improving the offensive line stats, because if the tush push, and that is actually a tush push. Like I guess, you have the running back, hey, yo, pushing the tush of the quarterback, but now you actually have, again, the offensive lineman this time. So it's a tush push variant, I guess. in a way. Hey, yo, it is what it is. But yeah, I guess to go back to trading NFL coaches, this does sound like a spot the Ravens and Steelers could be in, where if you got the coach looking at another destination that he wanted to go to, and obviously the team is willing to move on from that head coach, then they can agree that the two teams can agree to compensation to make that work. So again, maybe not every coach is going to be around where a team's like, okay, well, yeah, we'll just, you know, we'll take the L and then get a new contract and do the buyouts and, whatever these processes are. We see it in college, obviously, all the time. Brian Kelly's getting the biggest buyout in history or whatever, and they'll just go ahead and, Lane Kiffin, no problem, sign him right up. But yeah, I could definitely see, potentially something interesting happen there if one of those teams wanted to go in a different direction. And again, I don't want to be prisoner of the moment, but obviously the season results do matter. And if the Steelers are now going to trend in a direction where they win the division or make the playoffs like that, Mike Tomlin's probably going to be, you would imagine, end up just going to be safe for the season. And, you could get into the Rodgers sort of storylines on what you need to do there and maybe just also start considering a more long-term option. And maybe it does get a little easier with Rodgers now as well, too, because, again, when you bring in Jordan Love, Rodgers is like, well, I still got years to go at this point. And, is Rodgers better than Jordan Love right now? I don't know if he's better, but is he more impactful? Is he equally helping a team? It's kind of close in some ways. Their record's not too far off. I guess the Packers are going to have to lose this one to the Bears to help us, with that part of the argument as well. But yeah, regardless, if you actually bring in a guy now, maybe he's not like, okay, I'll show him the way, like, let me just train up my replacement. But maybe you want him to get motivated as well too. It helped him win a couple MVPs, but maybe it won't be as, like a toxic type of ordeal, because it did seem like, it got in the way of his relationship with the franchise a little bit. It never felt like him and the organization in Green Bay those last couple of years were on the same page totally. But yeah, again, I could see this being a little bit of a ripple effect game for the Steelers and the Ravens there. But Bengals versus Bills, and we definitely did have to check at some point. And we were watching this game thinking, are the Bengals, like, do we have to start thinking about picking them in some playoff games? But then looked at their record. It was like, oh, yeah, they are, I guess they're 4-9 now. So they were 4-8 at the point in the game when they were winning. And the Bills, like we said earlier, they did, of course, get, I mean, we don't even have to say it, we're looking at the score, we saw the game, they did get the comeback win, but just the chaotic nature of their season, Seattle is on the other end. I don't know if we kind of talk about these games at the same time, but as I was thinking about, as I was watching the Seattle game on the Red Zone and thinking about that one a little bit, they have kind of been the only team this year that I feel like has constantly stepped on the gas pedal in some of these games and put away the teams that they've put away, that they should have put away a couple of times. They did, I guess, we could pull up the schedule. They've dropped a couple games. Maybe they had a couple close ones in there. But it does feel like there's been multiple weeks here where they have maybe started a little bit in a closer game. And it's like, oh, this team going to hang with Seattle a little bit? Then all of a sudden you look up and Seattle's got like 30 plus and they are dominating the game. And, again, Buffalo has managed to win a couple of these crazy games as well, too. And Josh Allen has been awesome in fourth quarters. And just their overall fourth quarter ability just makes them a very scary team. But their ability, again, to step on the gas is different than Seattle's. And Seattle maybe has had some different opponents as well, too. But Seattle, it's like they'll start to pull away type of thing. And, of course, the Bills are like, we have to make a comeback pause. We have to storm back and try to win these games and make dramatic plays at the end of them. So though, I mean, I don't want to say that it's starting to feel Bills Seahawks again. That wouldn't necessarily be like a super hot take at this point. You do have the Rams, 31-10 right now. They are starting to, of course, really put it on pause. The Cardinals, Stafford, 20 for 26 is heating up. And if you're going to tell us to pick Darnold over Stafford, Stafford at the peak of his powers is going to be difficult. But the Seahawks secondary is pretty dynamic in their defensive line. I don't know if their defensive line is better than the Rams secondary, and then their secondary is better than the Rams defensive line. That'd be a good argument between those two, defensive units. Which one would be playing better this year? Because the Rams defensive line can wreck a game as well, too. But I don't know if we just have more fun watching Witherspoon and, Woolen and some of these guys wreck these plays But yeah, the Bills, again, in fourth quarters, at least they are dramatic and on the right side of some of these games as well, too. But for Burrow to play this year, this is about the only thing that can happen good for us anyways for Burrow's return, is that we just get dramatic games. Christian Watson with the long touchdown, it looks like, for the Packers. So they have a chance to make it a 10-point game here, 21-11, but if they make the field goal. But yeah, with the Bengals, again, being this far, quote unquote, this far out of playoff contention, with it being this kind of a reach, would it make sense to just kind of sit Burrow for the rest of the year? And honestly, if Burrow doesn't make those 2 turnovers, who knows what happens in this game? It is probably the craziest stretch of Burrow's career, just having those 2 back-to-back picks. He's had some games earlier in years, like September. He's had some September games, we should say, where he has, definitely had some multiple interception games. But just the fact that one of them went for the interception, then just immediately turn around. Both of them were batted at the line of scrimmage as well, too. It's not like he was throwing into coverage and just, getting picked off multiple times necessarily. I guess the Benford one was a little bit of that because of the way the, defender ended up making a break on the play. But yeah, at this point, it's like, the Bengals might as well just they can only really provide entertainment on Sundays. I guess, that's what all these teams are doing, obviously, at the end of the day. But they're clearly just for the watch time value of it. They're not really a playoff team themselves competing in any way. But proves that, again, obviously if Burrow would have been out there, they're just as scary as any other team. And, we'd have to look over where they're at headed into the offseason. The higher draft pick will make them a little bit of a interesting potential maneuver team as well, too. They do have the 10th overall pick right now. So maybe just a chance to get a lineman in there, Chad. I don't know if one tackle is going to fix all your problems. And, of course, they are going to be targeted early as well. Maybe the Rams get to trade. They have multiple picks here. Do they not? They've got the Falcons pick. Who's got the Rams pick? Wait a second. They've got also the 28th pick in the draft as well, too. So maybe they'd be willing to maneuver around a little bit. And, the Bengals jumping up 1 spot at this point wouldn't be super crazy. Kendrick Falk from Auburn, the edge rusher, is the number 1 pick right now. They've definitely been investing in that a little bit over the last couple of years. But, of course, maybe haven't quite gotten a full-time starter in the last couple of draft picks. I don't know if Myles Murphy has quite become that, though I think he's been a decent rotation player for him. But, of course, maybe, looking if they were going to go a different route than Hendrickson there at some point as well. But, yeah, they'll be a scary team if, of course, they're able to stay healthy next year. And, I don't know, 9 losses. Definitely, I don't know if they're mathematically limited, but definitely out of the playoffs now. But another big MVP game for Allen. Had the big run at the end of the game to close it out. No interceptions this one. 22 for 28, 251, 3 touchdowns for the rushes. He had 9 for 78 and a touchdown on the game as well. And again, Burrow, if you take out the 2 picks, I mean, I don't know if we just give him completions on those, but he would have been 27 for 36, and then whatever the yards would have been, maybe 300 yards at that point and 4 touchdowns. But 25 for 36, 284, 4 touchdowns. Like, he was definitely the better passer in this game for most of it. I don't want to, that's not a hot take, but with the snow as well too, this was about as impressive a Burrow game as you're going to have, because again, he was really making strikes all over the field. The conditions were, it wasn't the biggest blizzard that we've ever seen as well too, but it was snowing pretty good there for one point. Like, it was actually, again, a little bit of a snow downpour, if we can say that. Hey, is that a push a T bar? I'm not sure, but yeah, maybe Joe Cool. Will Push a T ever mention Joe Burrow in a song? I think of white quarterbacks that Push a T could shout out in a track, Joe Burrow is definitely one of them. But the Virginia connections, I'm sure. I mean, there's gotta be a Pusha T Mike Vick bar. There has to be, right? If not, Pusha T. I mean, maybe is he beefing with Mike Vick? I'm not sure. Mike Vick diss track. I'm not sure. Hey yo, not trying to say anything there, but I'm just saying maybe there needs to be a shout out if there hasn't. That would be the obvious quarterback area connection there that they would have. And I guess I'd have to go back and double check quarterback biographies to see who else is from the Virginia area. Who else could maybe Pusha T pay homage to the home areas. Maybe Pusha T's city's got some, maybe I want to start some beefs. Maybe there's rivalries with with Mike Vick's city. I don't know. Yeah, maybe 2026 Wrapped, Pusha T is gonna be in our top 5 because we're gonna be trying to find this Michael Vick bar. Can we just Google Michael Vick Pusha T lyric and see what happens? I mean, there's probably one on the new album, right? Hey yo, you would imagine. Feels like it would and Mike Vick would just be a fun shout out as well too. Feels like you can get some good rhymes with that name. But yeah, Jur Burrow. What is this? That's a Glorilla bar. Hey yo, Mike Vick is Pusha T. Jur Burrow. That is Glorilla. Shout out Glorilla. Shout out the Raptors. Not quite able to get the win today. Hey yo, but yeah. So Pusha T. Or who else were we saying that? But Merkel Vick. I guess maybe Michael Vick. Yeah, maybe Michael Vick's not. For us anyways. Maybe we can't do the Glorilla voice in the Michael Vick. I don't think we can really do the Glorilla voice at all. Respect. It's it's respect. It's not love. It's admiration. What do they say? Imitation is the greatest form of flattery. So it's just imitating the Glorilla voice respectfully because it's in the Spotify rap. How many Glorilla songs are in our top 100? I think we had a couple, but it's consistently playing the whole discography, right? Not just maybe crushing the one song. And plus she's a great feature artist as well too, so maybe her direct artist listening numbers aren't going to be in the same type of way, though now of course features getting a little bit, not getting a little bit more credited, but getting better at like the minutes kind of being distributed across both artists and being posted to both artist page, etc. Blah blah blah. But yeah, Jur Burrow, shout out with epic performance today, getting Jamar Chase and Higgins, both of them. Chase a little lower on the stats, but he did have a play. I guess, was there a touchdown that was called back that he had a crazy, like maybe one-handed catch or something, or maybe not a touchdown, or maybe that was Higgins. I don't remember. But either way, Higgins did have that toe tap sideline touchdown as well too. That was pretty crazy. But yeah, Allen back in, not to say that he was ever out of MVP contention. And again, you do have Stafford lighting it up again today. Drake May on bye this week. Is he watching his year 2 MVP, slip away? Stafford against the 3-9 Cardinals, or Josh Allen versus the 4-9 Bengals? Which performance is more impressive? I guess if the Rams can get to can they get 19 more points? Can they get to 50 in this one? 45? What's the number? If Stafford puts up 350 yards on 6 incompletions, I guess he's already at 8 right now, so that's not gonna happen. 245, 2 touchdowns, 20 for 28. And yeah, 31-10 against a team that, again, they probably should be having a pretty good game against. Puka Nacua, 6 for 136 and a touchdown. Feels like it's been a minute since, maybe since we've looked at the box score for a good Puka Nacua stat line. Because as I'm saying that, I feel like maybe a week or 2 ago, he did have another crazy game. But here, we can double check and see, of course, the way he started the season. JSN is now, it has been a minute. He did have 7 for 97, 6 for 72, so he's been getting targets and good production over the last couple of weeks. Not necessarily playing bad, but again, you look at the way he started the year: 10 for 130, 8 for 91, 11 for 112, 13 for 170, and a touchdown. He didn't have a touchdown until week 4, and then 10 for 85 and a touchdown is going to be crazy in the fantasy. I mean, 10 for 85. 10 catches alone is like flex play on just catches. You go 10 screens, it's not bad. 10 screens tackled at the line of scrimmage is like an okay game, honestly, for a fantasy standpoint. I guess if you want to lose. But, you're talking 20 points on catches and yards and then throw a touchdown on there. Not bad at all. But then, started to, of course, get the injury. So maybe started getting healthy as well too, and getting back to kind of a more complete version of himself. But yeah, I guess his first 100-yard game since Indianapolis, when he just schooled us for 170. But again, he had 97 against Tampa and 95 against New Orleans. So he's pretty close. But even more so, the 130 mark, the epic receiver mark. But that's not to take away from JSN's season. Again, now at this point, just with the amount of weeks it's been, you got to say JSN has had the better year. I mean, would you still rather have Puka Nacua as an option? I mean, if you're talking health as a factor as well, too. I mean, we've seen it for him be a little bit of a thing that you have to consider and you have to pay attention to. And there's probably definitely, again, amount of targets and maybe stylistically where he's getting some of those opportunities on the field. I don't know if he's getting led into tackles more than JSN. Does seem like JSN is running open more than Puka Nacua, and maybe that goes to his route running ability as well too, so you got to credit him there. But yeah, I mean, he's already at 1,336 yards through 12 games, 111 yards per game, 12 yards a target. So I mean, yeah, Chad, I mean, this is incredible. 2 for 23 last week against Minnesota, but 167 if we're going back in time, starting with I guess, yeah, we're just, however you want to say it. We're reading off his stats here. 167 yards, 105, 93, 129, 123, 162, 132, 79, 96, 103, 24. I mean, up until he had 23 points, his lowest total was 79. He had 90 or more yards in every game this year. So, we're not trying to all of a sudden, the hot take, he hasn't actually had the epic performance yet. And this means he definitely will now once we say this, because maybe it means he's also due for it as well, too, if you're having this great of a year. But he still hasn't even had, the 200-yard game. What did Puka have on that? I guess he had a 162 in there. What did Puka? He had a 167 against Tennessee as well. So Puka had, like a 170 this year? Let's go back and see. Yeah, 170. That was again against Indy, so that's why we're having a hard time remembering it, even though it should be, probably the first game we remember. But if we go through his career game logs, he does have a little bit more of this type of production where maybe he'll have 64, 72 in a couple of weeks and then, go for 150, 140, and 200. Maybe if we go like Nico Collins, that his best year so far. I say that one good year, but, again, he's been hurt. And the Texans have been up and down, and he's still a young receiver. So it's not like it's all, over for Nico Collins at this point. But 162, see, I guess, maybe not quite the 150 plus every week. 164 in his first year, and then a 163, 147. I guess definitely fewer 100-yard games. Hey, JSN's just better, is what we're seeing in the stats. It is what it is. We're just trying to make the case for our guy Puka. Makia Nacua. His name's not even Puka. I guess that's not totally surprising, but Makia. Would Puka be a shorter version of some other? Would Puka be like the start of a longer name or something like that? I don't know, and I guess we could look up. Is that on his Wikipedia page? The Puka Nacua nickname origins. But yeah, Makia Nacua, if I'm saying that right. Shout out. Beautiful name, chat. Beautiful name. It is what it is. But yeah, we're looking at JSN. I immediately wanted to look up Calvin Johnson's stats from that year. Again, immediately just go to the most extreme comparison. Or, we could go like Cooper Kupp, his crazy year as well, too. But I guess here, let's take a look at Nico Collins. That 1 year. I'm trying to think, maybe Justin Jefferson. I guess Jamar Chase would be another one. Jamar Chase would be a guy that, has really gotten up to the 180 plus yard games. He'll have the crazy performances. Yeah, Nico Collins this year, 2 100-yard games, where this year is not the one to necessarily compare all the stats up against. But in terms of the craziest performances here, let's see. Last year, he had, again against Indy, 195. This is why we traded for Sauce Gardner, people. We got to slow down some of these receivers. It is what it is. He had 195 against Indy, in 191 against Denver, 168 against Pittsburgh. So, again, it's still, what are we saying, 30 more yards in each of those games? I guess in some ways it is a lot of yards. But also, could JSN get that on one more catch in some of these games as well, too? Yeah, I'm not saying he can't get there. I'm just saying statistically, his numbers could still go super crazy if he has those big games. Oh, how could I even not think of this name as well, too? Maybe I'm thinking more, active for this year. But Tyreek Hill, of course, can, obviously have as major a performance as anybody at the peak of their powers, but we'll definitely have like a 40-yard game in there, a 60-yard game every now and then. I mean, even going back to Kansas City as well, too. Sometimes it's weather, sometimes it's matchup, sometimes it's just game plan type stuff can maybe not totally work out in his favor, but then again, he's going to just totally have a crazy performance. And then, 215, and that's that LA game that was iconic. 139, 142, 157. So maybe we need to go to the stat head. We haven't been to the stat head in a minute. Do we go to the stat head and see? Here, let's see if we can look this up real quick. And I don't really even know why this is important to see for JSN, but just, again, to see what is possible statistically for him to get to. He still has, and I want to say respectfully, those like historic type of games that he could log. And again, I'm not trying to just say every episode is just bulletin board material for Ohio State, the team, for former Ohio State players. We're just sitting here motivating these guys. Obviously, JSN, I guess, throwing the live stream on immediately after the game. We know he's locked in. He's like, what are they going to be saying to motivate me this time? But yeah, it just, again, what we've seen some of these other receivers have, could he maybe at some point get in the, the historic all-time, what do you want to say? Not all-time, like, number one receiver yards ever, just in terms of how much he could have for a season, of course. Could it go up? And maybe even this year as well, too, in these last couple of weeks, like we're saying, if he does lock in one of those, we'll just put 180 yards in there as a just like a random number. If he puts in one of those 180-yard type performances, then maybe he even ups his chances. I mean, at this point, to like have an actual record-breaking season, he'd probably have to have a couple of those in a row. So again, not to totally doubt him. It is what it is. But yeah, it would be probably not like number one season total on the line at this point. But here, wait, I guess if we go statistical factor, does this give us per game options? I forget. Or is there another per game thing we have to look for? This is why we don't go to the stat head, people, because just pulling up research stuff sometimes gets a little tedious. I forget, is it combined seasons? Players with the most seasons? We just want like a per game. Factor. If we just scroll, it was like we just looked at it, but it was definitely in here somewhere. Oh yeah, receiving yards. Here we go. Receiving yards per game. Wait, so where is the passing yards at? Passing yards. Do we have a per game? Passing yards per game. Oh wait, we're on receiving yards. That's what it is, and we're not even going receiving yards per game. We're going total yards in a game. Let's go 180. And wait, we actually do want Game Finder, chat. We got to lock in here and get the right thing pulled up. Hey, maybe it's just our ability to work the stat head. IT. Do some editing there. Do some editing there. Our ability to look up stats on Sports Reference. We'll just phrase it that way. Hey, maybe it's our ability to look up stats on Sports Reference that needs to improve a little bit. If we go receiving yards, 180, and then we go choose player filter, we want to find active players. We want to sort this by BMI, chat. I don't know if we necessarily want to do that. Active players, find players with most games, find players with most games in a season, we'll just go for careers in total instead of just, most players with 180 yards plus in a game in a season or whatever, but just to see who has had most of those types of high-level performances. So yeah, Tyreek Hill, I guess, has had 9. Jamar Chase is at 5. Mike Evans, shout out, with 6. Jefferson with 6. Adams with 4. Kittle with 3. And then Hopkins with 2. Juju Smith-Schuster with 2. Keenan Allen with 2. Nico Collins with 2. CeeDee Lamb with 2. And then the list of guys with 1. Oh, so JSN has had... Oh, maybe he did have a 200-yarder earlier this year. Or last year sometime as well, too. But right now, the tier of guys... And not the tier of guys that he's in, but the other guys on this list that he is with. Brandon Cooks, Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, Chris Godwin, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Lockett, Darren Waller, Kelsey, some of these other guys. on here. But yeah, then we got T. Higgins, Debo Samuel, A.J. Brown, DJ Moore, Pickens, Jerry Jeudy, Quentin Johnston, Drake London, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Devontae Adams, and Michael Wilson as well, too. So him and probably just of the one game guys, him and probably Amon-Ra are the top 2 on this list. I know Drake London, maybe Pickens at times, A.J. Brown as well, too. Brown, Jackson Smith, and then Amon-Ra would be the top 3 for the one game 180 guys. And then, obviously however you want to rank these other guys as well, too. Their names are definitely in the mix, and all the other guys that haven't quite got to this line as well, too. But yeah, JSN, there is still even, I guess, a slight tick up that he could go to. I guess it would be, if a player is scoring like 28, 29 a game, maybe a little bit. Maybe like Maxey right now, where you're like, okay, Maxey in some ways, this could be statistically a maxed out version of who he is. Like it's, him playing in some ways, you could see there's a better, more polished football/basketball version of the player, but maybe the stats kind of work their way to be, around the same year to year. But there is also a world where it's like maybe Maxey does go also from the 27 point a game guy, and then he takes a step up and now he's like at 31 a game for a year or something like that. So maybe JSN is in that line as well too for the receiver spot. I don't know. But yeah, the Seahawks and I guess now the Rams, of course, as we would expect and as we all kind of thought already, continue to establish themselves as the top teams in the NFC. And I don't know if the Packers with the win today kind of get in that mix, but we all know the talent that they have as well too. So of course they have to be considered. And I guess I don't know if that mentions the Bills game enough for that one or not. But hey, yo, when we get back from the break, we got the fun games to talk about, chat. Not the ones with necessarily playoff implications, though. The Saints causing a little bit of chaos, but maybe the ones we were most interested in from the quarterback standpoints. Some fun matchups, some fun performances, and for the most part, I think it kind of worked out for the guys that we root for. I mean, definitely when we double check the highlights, we'll see if that's true. But hey, yo, when we're back from break, more NFL Week 14 games to react to. It seems like the Broncos are going to close out the fourth quarter here with a 10-point lead, 2 minutes left. 2nd and 2, they can continue to run out the clock here on the other side of the 2-minute warning if they can keep the football moving. And like we said, the Cardinals and Rams definitely are going to be decided as well too, unless Brissett just decides to create full chaos in the NFL and lead a comeback. But fourth quarter action for Packers Bears with the Packers up 1 touchdown. Still an opportunity here for Caleb Williams to make an impact and keep their 1 seed title in Chicago so far. So 2nd and 1 as they near midfield. Caleb Williams under center gets the tight end in motion. A little, play action, chat. Komet on the bootleg. This looks like a Packers play. Caleb Williams just ends up throwing it out of bounds. Could he not have tried to pick up the 1 yard there? I'm not sure. Maybe we wait for this 3rd down. But I feel like journalistic integrity would be to get on the other side of the 3rd down before we go to break. And Puka Nacua, they just cut to this Rams-Cardinals game in the Bears-Packers game and said Puka got his 2nd touchdown of the day as well, too. So, yes, the pro Puka is the best receiver in the league, people. Good day for people on that side of the argument. I was definitely, again, strong on that side at the beginning of the year because, he was playing like it as well, too. But I'm not necessarily against, like I'm saying that, again, because JSN, he's so open on all these plays. It has to be at some point a credit to him. A little like early year Jetta as well too. Though Jetta did have, of course, he'd get the jump balls, he'd get the yards after the catch on some of the plays. But it would be a lot of he would just like cook a guy on a route and just be running wide open, and he'd get the pass. And of course, the quarterback play for him specifically being a little bit shaky year to year, maybe he needed to get more open to, get the targets and stuff like that. But the Bears will keep the football moving. They'll keep this possession alive, and we will be right back, chat, right after this. right, chat, we are back. It's 3rd and 1 on the live feed of our game for Chicago. They are on the 25, and it's 3rd and 1 because I guess as the play goes on here, we'll mention the second down. I mean, I'm sure America saw already, but ayo, they didn't even LaFleur challenged the play for Caleb Williams scrambling on 2nd and 1 to get the first down. I guess that was the play we went to break on, I think, and then they went to or maybe a couple plays before that, but they went to play the music to go for the outro to go to break because of the challenge, and they couldn't even finish the song to go to break, and the ref was already back on the microphone being like, after review, the ruling on the field is overturned. It was like, whoa, wait a second. LaFleur, actually, like, the best challenge of all time, like, is LaFleur actually, does that even count? Was that a review or a challenge? It was a challenge, but because he ended up winning both of his challenges today, he's going to get the other one, he'll get the third one anyway, so I guess it all kind of works out for him. If it counted as a review, then they give him back, it'd still kind of be a third challenge. But Caleb Williams tripping around. They ended up picking up the first down. Tripping around on 1st and 10. Has to chuck it out the back of the end zone. So has definitely been able to make some plays with his mobility on the ground so far, picking up some extra yardage. But the pass game in terms of the creation, throwing down the field, still a little shaky, still a little cautionary here, and still clean overall, thrown out the back of the end zone. It hurts the completion percentage. You look at the box scores and go, oh, is Caleb Williams playing well? But I guess just chucking out of the back of the end zone is better on that type of play, than just sliding around and then all of a sudden you're trying to throw it into double coverage, and now it's a turnover, it's a random bad throw. If we're digging into the other games that we said we thought were fun to watch, the Shedeur had a play like that against the Titans today where, Shedeur is starting to, and, today, obviously a little bit of a different matchup, but you did have people, of course, acknowledging that, yes, he is maybe a little bit more competent in the NFL than we thought, and yes, the speed of the game is something that he needs to adjust to, but there is clearly something there with his talent, and this is the type of game where it's like, okay, yeah, the Titans are 2-11, maybe not the best, competition in the NFL up to this point. And 3rd and 8, the Bears on the screen. You got to give the receivers as well, too, credit. It's a dynamic group when they have all their guys out there, but they've been making plays today as well. So we're not trying to take credit away from Caleb Williams, but just trying to evaluate the game and see what happens here, play to play. But, yeah, Shedeur was playing really well in this game, and they were up at one point. I want to say maybe it was 17-10, so it's not like they were starting to, really kill the Titans there, but he was playing a clean game overall and then got a little too comfortable on a scramble, kind of running around, and threw a pass down the field on a 3rd and long into kind of a double coverage situation, overthrew the receiver. It ended up getting picked, and that honestly was the play that ended up changing the game in the Titans' favor. Unfortunately for Shedeur, because they went down and scored after that play, and they ended up maintaining the lead and winning the game as well. And Pollard was, as you see the numbers there, pretty incredible today. He got that second touchdown, was directly off of that interception as well too. But again, just looking at Shedeur's basic numbers and looking at the comfortability, again, the Titans obviously a little bit of a lesser team, but like we're saying, if you slow the speed of the game down even just a little bit, it was clearly, more comfortable. So I know that's like, oh, Shedeur, you have to play worse competition to play better. Again, it's also Shedeur's 3rd game. So what I guess I'm trying to say is, he can do it on an NFL level. Pause. It's just he's going to need the time to have a couple of games to develop. Yes, he's been in the league technically for 14 weeks now, but again, his 3rd week actually seeing the NFL action and seeing the NFL defenses, and yes, he got a little too comfortable on that play, but you could start to see the game again adjust for him. So now he's again at least had a good statistical performance in some ways against a team like Tennessee. I guess we could pull up their schedule here. Obviously, it's not going to be every game for him, but his ability to continue to, build his tolerances and against these defenses is, of course, going to be important in his rookie year. Oh, wide open, chat. Caleb Williams floats it to Loveland. He's in for the touchdown, the extra point. The Bears can take the lead. We'll see if Ben Johnson, this would be seems like a situation where now, 8 minutes left in the 4th quarter. These NFL coaches really want to prove themselves. They want to almost be, well, I guess now we're, the coaches want to be the heroes, but it's like, hey, we can just go for 2 and end this, not end this here, but take the lead. It would be a little reckless with 8 minutes left in the fourth. I'm just saying, I would not be shocked these days if teams start to do it. But they will take the field goal. They will try to tie it up and trust the defense to get a stop up and away. Right down the middle. Pause. Okay. So tied game. Shout out. Caleb Williams in Lambeau goes down the field. So again, he hit the guys that were open, made some easy throws and some yards after the catch, but is able to engineer the drive. So I know that maybe if you're the Browns, again, at the end of the day, back to Shedeur, you do want to walk away with a win against the 1-11 Tennessee Titans, but it's also, and you don't want to necessarily chalk up the football math to Shedeur losing a game, but again, at the end of the day, the Browns don't necessarily need to win a game. They're trying to get a good draft pick as well. And are the Titans going to go 1-17? It still is pretty difficult to go a 1-win team for a season. How many teams have only been 1 win? So I know there's, probably only maybe 20 teams that have won 2 games over the course of the season. But at least the tier for bad teams that have, they start to get into a little bit more normalcy for bad teams. Again, we got the Browns right now with 3, so they might collect even 1 more win over the course. They'll probably end up. Do they play the Colts one more time? Who's a good receiver that can go for 170 yards against the Colts? I guess will Okongwu, Van Jefferson will have the game of his life. Gunnar Helm, is Gunnar Helm actually a gunner on the special teams? And then he'll just have a crazy day. James Proche. Maybe that's a name that sounds like he might. Maybe we've liked his draft stock before. Maybe he'll have a crazy day. I don't know. Or just Pollard continues to go off as well, too. And then it would be like Pollard swinging fantasy leagues at the end of the year by a couple of crazy performances. You could definitely see something like that. Judkins 14 for 26. I want to say that Judkins, hasn't necessarily had crazy stats the last couple of weeks with Shedeur in the lineup as well, too. As Shedeur is holding back Judkins. Is that the take? No, I'm just saying that I don't know if Shedeur's had necessarily the same run game to work with as well. 23 for 91 against San Francisco. So, 4 yards a carry. Definitely, good for a running back. But I don't know if it's throwing the defense off. Barely enough. It's like 36% from 3. It's like, okay, it can kind of be respectable depending on how you need it to play out. And then, was able to get 2 touchdowns against the Raiders. Of course, had some easier looks at the goal line, but 16 for 47 is not the craziest stat line as well, too. And again, it even goes back a little bit as well. 17 for 59, 22 for 76. I guess it was some touchdowns earlier in the year. In that, 84, 3 touchdowns is definitely going to help the fantasy stats. And then he did have the 110-yard game against Minnesota. 82, 94. And then if you're a rookie, 82 and a touchdown, 94 and a rookie, 110, 84 and 3 touchdowns. Again, you're cooking to start the year. Make no mistake, but 19, no touchdowns, 35, no touchdowns, 59, no touchdowns. Definitely slowed down a little bit. And then again, his 2 touchdown game is with 47 yards there on top of that. So I think that Shedeur, and I think even more importantly, just more instantly as well too, and not to, again, call direct guys out, but it's the competition that he's playing against. Shedeur's better than Dylan Gabriel. It is what it is. Has he played a little bit better than what Gabriel, could Gabriel have put up 300 yards against the Titans? I actually think he probably could have. But again, I think Shedeur, there is a comfort level that maybe he hit and a swagger and a confidence. You're like, okay, I was starting whatever, do you want to just throw around the term primetime, but also primetime junior, respectfully. So maybe it's appropriate way to pass on the lineage of the nickname. But whatever kind of primetime, I'll just say like star power elements that he's able to bring from it. It's like you can just see the little flashes of them. And I know that sometimes that comfortability as well, too, can kind of, because it also maybe doesn't always lead to great plays, it can get people on the opposite side of things. But I think those are moments that he needs to learn from as well, too. Because, again, I think he has handled himself well throughout this process. So, every rookie quarterback is going to throw his picks and have their mistakes. And if he's throwing a pick in that scenario where it's him getting a little too, a little too like loose on a play, that's actually a little bit better, I think, than him, him to be like, oh, I'm going to go back and get my reads, and now I'm panicking, and I'm just going to throw a pass, and all of a sudden, I'm just making a decision. I'm trying to do well. They're always trying to do well, but it's like, this is a good play that just, like, a pick happened. It is what it is, and sometimes those types of plays, you're like, I don't even know what else you can do here. It's just, he's just going to throw a pick because that's kind of what, where he's at as an NFL quarterback, and compared to the competitions of the defenses, I get this, a non-coach X's and O's guy is trying to break it down, but if it's him just getting too comfortable and too unmechanically sound and not necessarily being as disciplined as he should as a quarterback, trying to create down the field. And I know, again, if you get to start, Mahomes can get away with some certain stuff, Josh Allen can get away with some stuff, I get it, but and if they're making those plays and they can get away with it, go for it. Again, make the plays that you can make. Is that our coaching from a non-X's and O's standpoint? Make the plays that you can make. But it sound like Pacino in Any Given Sunday, just like some vague coaching terms. I think I guess if you have Jamie Foxx and LL Cool J, it might work out at the end of the day as well too. So if we end up starting a team, is that our first move? Maybe not now, but we'll see. If it's like an over 50 NFL team, and then, or just, I guess, football team, because over 50 football. Though maybe once we get over 50, the athleticism evens out a little bit. But I think LL Cool J and Jamie Foxx are good athletes anyway. Either way. If it was like you can't really do like a 2-person football team. Could we do Any Given Sunday versus the Nightcap Pod somehow? Maybe it's just like a foosball matchup. I don't know how it's. It really is a different route than a football game. But I think Shannon Sharp versus LL Cool J and Chad Johnson versus Jamie Foxx. Again, I don't know. Are we boxing? Are we running routes? Is like Jamie Foxx, do they have to take turns like running routes against each other, and then it's like one-on-one, like Shannon Sharp gets a 5 Mississippi count, and then he gets to rush LL Cool J, and then Chad Johnson 5 Mississippi, he's going after Jamie Foxx, and they kind of switch around on who's, now all of a sudden the other guy's going out for routes. Like, we'd have to look into some 2-man football tournament rules, but yeah, either way, going back to what were we saying about making the plays that you can make as a player? I don't know. Somebody's out there creating, but shout out to Shador. Maybe, hopefully his fate is not to be in the cast of Any Given Sunday remake. Hey, hopefully that would be, maybe if Shador's like the coach, or maybe he's, had a 20-year NFL career at this point, and maybe he's still even playing in the NFL year 20. He's like this is the draw of the movie, current NFL quarterback Shador. Maybe it'd be a little ironic in year 20 if he's playing a quarterback getting replaced, maybe a little self-aware, who knows. But if you've played 20 years at that point, again, and, Shador, what has he won? What do we give him? 3 Super Bowls? Shador, what do we set the bar at, chat? Hey, it's Cleveland, so anything's possible, right? Cleveland! Is that the quote? Anything is possible? Is that the city? Or I was going to say, does he need to go to the Patriots to win those 2 Super Bowls? But let's not see that happen. Hey, at the end of the day, I guess we want to see Shador succeed. But if he's going to win, he can always go to the Colts as well, too. Is that the move, chat? Is that the move? Again, do the Browns have their franchise guy, or do they think they can sell high on their 5th-round pick? However they want to look at it, the Colts, maybe we bring in Shador in the offseason, replace an injured Daniel Jones. I don't know, but Packers move into 1st and goal here. Running back with the handoff. It's not Jacobs. Wait a second. He slides down, though, inside the 5. Wilson? What's the name of their Wilson running back? Zach? Who is this? Shout out. He is not able to quite get in the end zone, though. Oh, Bears player down in this one. So Jordan Love today, 17 for 25, 234, 3 touchdowns and a pick. He's a post-Thanksgiving Hall of Famer at this point, basically. A December Hall of Famer. Do we need to have, to continue to add wings to the Hall of Fame, do we need to have like a month wing where it's like this player, we're inducting Jordan Love's Decembers into the Hall of Fame? Or like the complete opposite, of course, would be, chat, the Bears player got kicked in the face by a heel. Maybe you heard Brady say it there in the background as well, too. I think the heel did get the chin like through, because he was flying in to make the tackle, and the heel got up under the helmet and hit him on the chin. Hey, so it looked like maybe it would have got face mask there, but yeah, he might have got legit like Adesanya for a second. And Yeah, the Mendoza chat. He might just have to go to the sideline. The Mendoza effect. I don't know if that's what it's called, but if a player just needs a play to collect themselves now, we're calling it the Mendoza effect. I mean, the fact that again he got back up and was able to continue to play the game, and the fact that they won the Big Ten title makes it a little bit funnier now. But it was a crazy hit, and again, obviously the game, in a good way, has been cleaned up, and I know there is like a nostalgia to going back and just watching guys get destroyed and playing football. It is what it is, but this was legitimately like you could stack this up with some, and a lot of it as well too. Again, with respect to Mendoza, because I mean, if Mendoza needs to take a play, like I would need to, take a year probably to recover from a hit like this. It is what it is. But I'm just saying that a lot of it as well too is of course in the reaction of the player that gets hit, as well as it is just the physicality of the hit themselves. I mean, that's obviously that's kind of obvious. Like if Cam Newton just stays standing, then it's not going to be. It's all of a sudden going to be a highlight for Cam Newton. But sometimes, and I say respectfully, the flailing of the player. Not to say that it was intentional for Mendoza, and it was a great completion as well too, because again he saw the defender there, so he's like, okay, I'm gonna at least be willing to absorb this contact. But he was, I guess we need to break down the play or see the highlight here. I don't know if we're gonna be allowed. What are the rules for watching? Oh, chat, hey yo, we can't go to the gram. I think we might be. Are we logged in on the business account or the personal account? Hey yo. I don't know if we got information revealed. I guess here we go. Do we get maybe the tube will be the place to go? The chat, the YouTube is what we mean. We'll see here. And yeah, on the first play of the game, it was like, of course this is set up perfectly for Ohio State. It is what it is. But it ended up being for Fernando Flippin' Mendoza. Is that his nickname now? Flippin' Mendoza? Flippin' Fernando? I don't know. We're not trying to get controversial. I'm just saying that we're just quoting his quote from the presser. That's all. And I think there's something there with the alliteration that makes it work for a nickname. So Flippin' Fernando Mendoza does have a little bit of a decent potential to it. Yeah, I mean, you get the still at the right moment, and it's going to look kind of crazy. Is there going to be a highlight on here? Or just images? Oh, this might just be a breakdown. Just images, as Bing Videos continues to, never feed you, or just Bing in general, never feed you the right info. I mean, we will call them out until they improve. It is what it is. And I guess we may have to go to the gram to get the highlights. It is what it is there. Maybe it's on us, chat, for not being logged into the right account. Do we have like a TikTok here or something here? Wait, let me mute the page real quick. Just to see. Okay, we'll get logged in and see this highlight. I mean, again, I'm sure America saw it already. I'm sure hopefully everybody was locked in and watching Ohio State face defeat. But yeah, and I don't even know if slow motion does it justice. As well, too. Shout out to Fernando. Hey, yo. Again, you get it the right time. Oh, the slow-mo on the close-up is brutal as well too. And then yeah, he's just literally laying there unconscious. So I mean, concussion protocol means nothing these days. I don't even know if they had a blue 10 out for Mendoza. I think he just went to the sideline and got back out. Whoa! Oh my god! Oh, bless us. I guess excuse me, chat. No, what's the right thing to say for yourself when you sneeze? I'm not sure. Maybe just both. Just get them out of the way. It is what it is. But just cover all the bases. Blessed, excused. At Kazoon type, whatever the words are these days. But Gus Johnson, he was on the call for this one. I don't think he got crazy. He didn't get super crazy in this game in general. There was one throw to the sideline where there may have been a little like voice crack, but again, it's like a classic kind of. It's not a clown in voice crack. It's kind of that iconic, exciting play voice crack. Because I was watching a compilation earlier of announcer voice cracks. I mean, the McDonough one's obviously the best, but some of them they do like lend themselves to the excitement. I mean, again, you get Gus Johnson against Indiana, the Indiana Penn State play where he's like, Amarion Cooper, touchdown. I mean, that is more McDonough sounding, but that does get to the 10 out of 10 levels of the extreme. But there's sometimes where it's almost not even a voice crack. It's more like a pause. It's more like a voice loss moment where, again, there is the definite like, whoa, is that puberty at 45? But then there's sometimes where it's like, oh man, the excitement's just so much. They're like, the voice can't take it anymore. And sometimes that works. I guess, but most announcers don't have voice cracks in like the iconic plays, I would say. Just as a brief overview of maybe professional announcing. But still, I guess maybe there is sometimes where maybe a voice crackle, if that's a right way to say it, might be actually, it's like a vinyl scratch or like a little radio static sometimes. Maybe it does work. But there was one play where it was like, oh, is Gus Johnson going to start ramping it up here through this game? And then he never, I think, quite got to like 10 out of 10 just Gus Johnson levels. But I think he was a little nervous too watching Ohio State in this one. Again, he is a Michigan guy. It is what it is. But shout out. So if if NCAA football hasn't taken us down yet for watching this highlight a million times, we appreciate it. We were like, can we watch this? And then we just kept replaying it over and over. Should we double check real quick everything? Are we still live? Do we still have rights? Do we still have a channel? Do they one highlight stop everything? It can be pretty close these days. Okay. I think we are good to go. But yeah, Shedeur Sanders, not looking too bad in 2025. And our guy McCarthy had the best game of his career today as well, too. So, wait a second. We got to mention as well, Caleb Williams, down a touchdown, 3.5, has a chance to continue to make his stamp here. Kind of a not even kind of a pretty mid return by the Bears returner. Kind of ran right into the Packers defender. Do we have to talk about lines now? All of a sudden, there was a college play, I don't know if it was a week or 2 weeks ago now at this point, where the guy had a clear breakaway touchdown and ran out of bounds. That is one where I know everybody saw that. Unfortunately for that guy, probably going to be investigated now. But is about as clearly a giving up on the touchdown type of opportunity as you can get. Because I think it might have been at a point in the game where it's like he kind of has to score here for them to win. And I don't want to say it was a ceiling touchdown, but again, it might have been like a real, if there was the other team needed to get to a certain point, it would have been really difficult for them to be able to achieve that. So, clearly prioritized the off the field future more so than the on the field future. It is what it is, but Williams with a strike on 1st and 10 gets it out, and they're near midfield. Plus, he is going to leave too much time on the clock. Right over the linebacker chat. Hey, a dime of a throw. Again, Caleb Williams, not to say that he's had a ton of turnovers, obviously, throughout the course of his career, again, but maybe he doesn't have the consistency to be like, do we trust him to just drop it in over, layer in throws, I guess is that the correct way to say it? Do we trust him to always layer in throws? I don't even know if that's something he was always doing at USC, but Ben Johnson, if he gets that working with him as well too, that's the whole point, is to unlock him as a player. So creating, running, scrambling, throwing back in the middle of the field. Oh, chat, the risky plays there. I mean, maybe just every Caleb Williams throw is a heartbreak or like a heart attack at this point. We're not even Bears fans, but hey, it's almost just like, can some of, because Jordan Love has had his moments, not to say that we're ready for him to be out of the spotlight, but, Caleb Williams is going to have some sort of, extra moment at some point as well, too. Not them just, like, fighting to get every win. I was going to say him like 180 yards, but he's got 162 right now, so he's going to have 180 and 2 touchdowns in this one. He needs to have, the stats are there, the impact's there. But this is it as well, too, where at this drive and this, because a lot of this is second half production. So just this second half in general could be that half, because he just threw another strike to Duvernay down the sideline. And I got to say, I don't know if we could go back and look at him mechanically throughout the course of his NFL career, but he does look a lot more, a lot more fluid in his throwing motions, and obviously just some of these being a little bit more accurate as well too. But I think you can kind of see him getting getting his hips around. I mean, he was standing with his right leg by the time he almost got that one. His right leg was almost completely turned around. So, I mean, I think he's doing a better job of getting aligned on some of these throws as well too. So, again, I don't know how much we can credit, what is the Ben Johnson effect here for all that different stuff. But yeah, this second half is starting to become a Caleb Williams second half type of ordeal. And they showed the first down discrepancy earlier before the Packers went down and scored. And it was definitely the Bears dominating, early on in the third quarter. The Rams 45-17, so they might actually get to 50. Hey, I guess we did lower it there afterwards and say 45 was the number. So are the Rams officially back? Now they're at 45, and now they're the best team in the NFC again. Did they need to hold the Cardinals to below 17? 45-17, I think, is respectable enough. If you win against another team 45-17, you could be in the conversation. So yeah, the Rams are back on top again. Pause. So the Rams are now, and again, I don't know if the Bears would be the number one seed. I don't know if we'd still say they're the number one team, but the Rams would be the number one team in the NFC. And I guess we don't even know if we'd say the Bears would be the number two team, but the Seahawks would now be the number two team in the NFC. Again, for no other reason than we said if the Rams can get to 45 points, we would have to put them at number one. So as a man of our word, the Rams continue to, the Rams will be there in our unofficial Week 14 power rankings. But here, any other games we need to mention before the 2 minutes closes out here for Bears versus Packers? I guess we could scroll through here as well too. We did say Dolphins looking better as well. Oh, McCarthy. That's what we were going to talk about. McCarthy playing well today. Here we can get a double check of the actual stat line as well. I think it was a little more in that Caleb Williams type of stat line. Maybe a little lower on the yardage, but good overall. Yeah, 163 yards, but 3 touchdowns. 16 for 23 though, and again, all trending in the right direction. Jaden Daniels 9 for 20, 78 and a pick. So the injuries are going to be, of course, the thing that are going to be pointed to as for why the season went this way, and rightfully they should be. But on the field as well, I guess I don't know if he's out for the year, but at this point in 3-10, he probably is. And he almost dislocated his elbow again today, so you're gonna risk that at the fact that they're at 3-10 now, just to maybe get him a little bit of rhythm. Again, at the end of the day, he's in his second year, so maybe he should be able to get that in the offseason. I'm not sure, but pause. But yeah, 9 for 20, 78 is pretty crazy. Again, he's playing him, through majority of the passes, obviously, played a good chunk of the game. Of course, the entire team has been injured and dealing with stuff, and they've been in contention for quote unquote one of the year from hell type team. So in some ways, this game could definitely again reflect more on Washington in sort of where they're at trending in their direction than it does for Minnesota and where they're trending at in their direction. But again, McCarthy at some point's got to find rhythm against these teams, and for him to have the efficiency that he did today is definitely encouraging. And what did Jefferson do today? Yeah, 2 for 11, 4 targets, Addison 7 targets. I mean, you're not gonna hear me sit here and start doubting Justin Jefferson. That's for sure. But maybe just not even a little bit. But I will say that it doesn't feel like he's quite gotten the same separate. I guess we got to check the tape. We shouldn't say that. We'll check the tape. This is the way we'll phrase it. We should check the tape this week to see if Justin Jefferson has been getting the same separation over the last couple of weeks, because we need to make an excuse for our guy McCarthy, of course, as to why it may potentially have taken him a couple weeks, because it's also only been a couple of weeks. And I know we've mentioned the revisionist history maybe a couple times in some of those games, but you got to remember that Falcons pass rush is actually a good pass rush, it turns out, this season, and that way they were able to affect him in that Sunday night game is, I think, just a real thing. His second game in the NFL. I don't know if we can necessarily judge him too harshly for that. So it's been maybe some explainableness to some of the matchups. And again, like Shador, you get a team that he has a chance to get some rhythm against, and he actually does it a little bit. Like, you have to be encouraged by that at some point. Is he gonna? Do we have to go back and look? Like last year was Drake May in his first 2 games, just throwing for 350 yards every game. but he did show encouraging signs, of course, maybe even a little bit more than obviously guys like McCarthy and, whoever. But it was, again, the off season the next year, building on all of that, and then going into this year and being better and ready to go and showing that on the field. And McCarthy and Shador and these guys, again, proving that they are worth the opportunity, and that, of course, if they put in the work in the offseason as well, too, that they can get there. But and we believe that, anyways, that these baselines that they are starting from, now and continue to develop from are the kind of, at least can be the starts for the correct trajectories as well. But, we didn't see too many of the actual passes, so we're just going to sit here and ramble about the stat line, because if we go actually dig into the tape, like we say, it may prove us wrong. So we'll enjoy the fact that McCarthy had 3 touchdowns and 0 picks in a decent day, in a good win today, before we potentially could find out that it is a little bit of, maybe due to other factors, who knows. But again, you got to give maybe a little bit of encouragement, a little bit of credit to, chat, 22 seconds in the game, 4th and 1. Caleb Williams floating it into the end zone, gets picked off. The receiver was definitely behind the defender. Pause. I don't know if we can necessarily go back on the replay here. We'll have to judge if we can call that open or not. I mean, it was probably open for the NFL. DJ Moore, I mean, if it's DJ Moore, it probably was open because it got picked off. That's usually how it goes for DJ Moore. Yeah, Chad, he was there. He was there. I don't know if it was that. Oh, was that Komet? I don't know if Komet maybe gave him the best angle on that, but he could have just floated that a little bit more to the back of the end zone as well, too. And then just Komet just starts to go, back toward the end zone line there. So, after such a great opportunity and, a great second half for Caleb Williams, that is a tough one. And, we don't want to say the overall storylines, all the different stuff. At the end of the day, they're 9-4 now. They've, gotten to the point where they've been on top of the NFC North. We don't know, are they going to lose every game here at the end of the year? But you assume that this is still going to be an overall successful year to some degree under Ben Johnson. But again, these type of moments in Lambeau, it's difficult. This is all difficult things to literally weather AO. But the opportunity was there. And 4th and 1, they're right there in the red zone. And just not quite able to get the right angle on that. But I don't know, again, we get technical about the stuff. We necessarily have to go back and double check all of the throws. But some of those, again, off balance. And that was him running out, kind of off balance, creating out of rhythm type of stuff as well, too. Or I guess not necessarily, you wouldn't necessarily say that's creating out of rhythm. I guess that'd be more in reference to probably dropbacks. But, him creating out of scrambling opportunities. But a lot of the ones that he was completing throughout the course of the game were, again, some of those sidearm, like kind of slinging it in there, pause type of throws, versus this, he tried to loft it up and, a little touch pass almost. So maybe, again, the exact diversity on all the throws and everything he's able to dial in, maybe it still needs some work. But you can't necessarily not be encouraged by some of the stuff you saw in this half. And again, you can start getting to year 2, year 3. You got to be looking for more than just individual moments to be encouraged by. You got to start stringing it together, of course, for actual sustained success at some point. Obviously, who are we to talk? But at the end of the day, from a Caleb Williams standpoint, you got to be able to, probably hit that receiver there in that moment. It is what it is. But